What's that noise? That's apparently one of my dogs barking. Welcome everybody to Bridge the Divide, to my live stream. Thank you all so very much. Oh man. It's a wild day today. A wild day. It's kind of a crazy, kind of a crazy past couple of days in trying to get things set up and do stuff and try to, because I wanted to go live again. I haven't been live in so long. I hate long periods of time. I know some YouTubers don't like going live, but I do like going live and checking in with y'all and seeing how everybody is doing and saying hi to everyone and kind of giving updates on what things that are going on and stuff like that and and just hanging out because I just really enjoy it. It's amazing. So as you saw by the thumbnail, today is scheduled a debate on the existence of God between me and an individual that I came across on Facebook. And it was scheduled for 3 o'clock today. This was supposed to be kind of like the preamble or kind of like setting the table. So I'm saying, so they have the link, everything is good, and it's either going to be a debate or it'll be a conversation. Either way, depending upon how they're feeling. So kind of we're just going to hang out for a minute and kind of like see who all is here and say hi to everybody and kind of give some updates as far as like the travel circumstances or what's going on concerning the fight that Chile de Castro kind of bitch made out of. Other than that, that's pretty much it. My debate is ready to go. I've got all my stuff set. So first and foremost, let's my allergies are killer. I don't know if anybody else's allergies are bugging the hell out of them, but my allergies are kicking my ass. I gotta be honest. Okay, so, and as a heads up, just to make sure everybody knows, if you are a channel member, if you are a member of the Godless Army, and you put in a, what are those milestone chats, I don't get those on StreamYard, so I have to actually physically look at the YouTube in order to look at YouTube in order so I can see those. And I did see that Charlie Welch put in a milestone chat. He's been a member of the Godless Army for 13 months. I do appreciate that, Charlie Welch. Thank you so very much. The only man on the internet you never make a bet with. Thank you so much, dude. I do appreciate the support. But let's see who else we have in the chat. Starting from the top, going down, we got Hello Baby is here. Good to see you, Hello Baby. Had some comments about her version of God. That's cool. Kyle Wellman is also here. Thanks so much for being here, Kyle. We do appreciate it. Let's see. Kyle says, I will do my best to watch the stream. It's my son's birthday today. He turns 5. Happy birthday to your son. Hope he has an excellent one. Kyle he also says, I would love to talk shop with you about this topic. I hate Christians, but I do believe in God. Active Christians are fake, lying, and pompous asshats. A lot of them, yeah, I get that. But so you got to run? Definitely. If you want to hang out, Kyle, just throw me a message or come back into the chat if you have time. I know your priorities and your son's having a birthday. And I hope he has an amazing day. You only turn 5 once. It's the same with any other number. But I hope he has a blast. And but if you have time, you're more than welcome to pop in and we can chat. Frayed Edges is here. Says, oh my God, why am I not getting notified on my computer? But then just share this channel link with someone and your next live stream showed up. Do not let me know. I love all of my followers, all of the people who deign to pop by and pay me any mind whatsoever. I'm a total whore for your attention. I absolutely am. And I can see that it works because Fred Edges is a new member of the Godless Army. So thank you so much, Fred. I do appreciate that. Thank you very much for that support. And please enjoy all of the custom emojis that I've made for you. And please enjoy your channel badge, the Expanding Mind badge, which will expand, like the meme will expand the longer you're with me. So thank you very much. Appreciate that. Matthew is here. Says, quick debate. The answer is no. As put on this channel many times, the properties of the Judeo-Christian God, as stated by his word in the relevant holy text, possess too many logical contradictions. Agreed. And Turing Test quickly says, shush, no spoilers. But Turing Test is here, another member of the Godless Army. Thank you so much for the support, Turing Test. Thanks for hanging out. Surf is here as well, another member of the Godless Army. Says, what is this? Hopefully it's a debate. Or at minimum a conversation. Hopefully it's a debate. McKinnon Mitchell is here, another member of the Godless Army. Says, my boy JL at it again. Good to see you, McKinnon. Cannot wait for the upcoming debate and, of course, all your other content. Can't wait for the next documentary you're releasing. After the Hovind one, after the Death one, your content is amazing. If you have not subscribed to McKinnon Mitchell, Okay, get your tails over there and subscribe to his channel because he does amazing content. In my personal opinion, put the final nail in Ken Hoven's coffin. Like no one else had done before. People have made Hoven look stupid. People have exposed Hoven's arguments as ridiculous. People have pointed out his intellectual dishonesty. They've pointed out the extreme, if you want to talk, flaws in his character. His fundamentalist ideologies, his mistreatment of women, his mistreatment of his employees, his greed, all that stuff. But no one does it quite so deliciously as McKinnon Mitchell does. So get over there and check that out if you haven't had the opportunity, or at least save that link so you can watch it later because it's an amazing documentary. Maddie B is here. Good to see you. Says, hey, everyone. This is my first time on Jail's live debates. Do appreciate that. Oh, by the way, this debate takes place. It's scheduled for 3 o'clock. Johnny O will be moderating. So Johnny O from the plot hole will be popping in to moderate because he's the best neutral moderator that I could possibly come up with. The guy is on point. So I'll always trust him to moderate effectively to keep both me and anybody else in control. All right, Alice Caffrey's here, another member of the Godless Army. Says, hi to everyone. Good to see you, Alice. Thanks so much for being here. Tony Regime as well says, hello, everyone. Good to see you, Tony. Thanks for hanging out. Cindy Johnson, member of the Godless Army, says, hello, all. Hope you're having a good afternoon. It's going well so far. Going very, very well. So appreciate you being here, Cindy. Cal Cool J as well says, good evening, Dividers. Good to see you. Oh, I like that. I like that very much. That's a good one. Good to see you, Cal L. Thanks so much for hanging out. Ed2276 is here. Says, hi. Same with Peter Collins is here. Good to see you, Peter. Thanks for hanging out. Sean Galloway as well says, hey there, everyone. Good to see you, Sean. Let's see. Ooh, got a bunch of new faces. Nemo813, member of the Godless Army, says, hello, everyone. Good to see you, Nemo. Thanks for hanging out. Colorado Biker as well says, howdy, all. Hail Satan, hail Sagan, hail Bacon. I can get behind all three of those. Thank you, Colorado. Thanks so much for hanging out. But Doctor Who Design is here as well. So is Kelly Fitzpatrick. Thanks so much for being here. And I saw that Charlie Welch is here as well. I saw his milestone chat. Captain Welshie is here. Says, hello, everyone. Good to see you, Captain Welshie. Thanks so much for hanging out. Surf is here. Says, hello, all. Good to see you, Surf. Another member of the Godless Army. Adam as well. Another member of the Godless Army says, hey. Good to see you. Let's see. Colorado Biker says, just came over from watching Talk Heathen, a.k.a. lots of announcements and promos for themselves. Very little good content. This is usually much better. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot. I understand that's the biggest. I like being I like private in this respect, that I'm a private content creator. And I understand that we're all, as YouTube content creators, we're all establishing brands. And it's important to establish brand recognition so that people, can easily find you. But you cannot sacrifice the, content or depth of content. You cannot sacrifice the quality of your content just for brand recognition. Okay? And I get why, because, we have limited time slots, but, that's a thing that they have to contend with. I like to keep the conversation open as possible. If I needed to, I would live stream. I would live stream for 8 hours. If any theists or Christians or whatever wanted to come along and ask me questions or have conversations like this, I'd be happy to. The problem is that there is a dearth of them. The vast majority you find on Discord typically are just antagonistic trolls, or the vast majority that you find on Clubhouse are pretty much the same. So it's difficult to get to nail it down so we could have so we could make that substantive content. I think I know why that is. I don't want to presume, but what are you gonna do? Hopefully we will. I'll have a guest tonight. So hopefully we will have a debate, and this will be we'll actually have a good substantive debate about this topic. Let me see here. Scrolling. I hate it when it jumps on me. Archivist17 is here. Says AFJL. Good to see you, Archivist17. Tony Regime, thank you so much for all the obligatory ghosts. I do appreciate that. Look at the trees is here. Good to see you. Look at the trees. I do look at the trees. They are pretty trees. Let me see here. It says, when I got 10 minutes to spare, check my DMs. Check my Discord DMs. I don't see anything. Or unless you're not talking to me, Tony. Because I'm not seeing anything. Wait, hang on a sec. Let me see. Oh, no. Boom. I know you sent me the message on VR. So I know you sent me that. And from what I understand from what I understand, given the level of technology, given where directors and production companies are moving. Okay, so What it is essentially for, it's prawn is what it is. And I know this is totally off topic, but the argument for VR becoming the next step in sort of like media entertainment, whereas immersive content, is because of prawn. Okay, so essentially, what will occur, what is where things are going, is that the prawn industry is always at the forefront of where everyone else goes. They lead the charge. So, for example, the reason DVDs, or the reason Blu-ray won out over, or the reason VHS won out over Beta, was because it's cheap and it's you can mass produce it for much cheaper than Beta, and VHS won out and won that deal because of the prawn industry, because they are the ones that need to create as many as possible and get those things out there and get their product out as fast as possible for as cheap as possible. So they go for quantity in order to get their ROI. So, because the prawn industry leads, and because sex is obviously, by nature, an intimate experience, and that's what you have when you're watching prawn, then that industry is pushing towards VR, is pushing towards an immersive experience, which means that technology that is geared or produced for personal immersive experience will be the one leading the forefront, because what better for the prawn industry than the most immersive experience possible in order to get that content to you. So that's simply the way it's going to be. That's the generalized opinion, or like I say, the general opinion of the filmmakers that I speak with, the people in the industry, that is the direction it is going. That you want more immersive technology, more things that allow you to be a part of the action, and anything that allows for that, the prawn industry will embrace. And if they embrace it, that's when everybody starts using it. That's the direction that the industry will go. So, for lack of a better term, prawn is where it's going to go. It's where it always goes. It's what chose VHS. It's what chose Blu-ray over HD DVD. It's what killed Laserdisc, and that's essentially that is the industry standard for media release is whatever prawn decides. So that was what I was predicating that on. Let me see here. I got to go through it because I know Casey and Randy's here. Says hello, JL. Good to see you, Casey and Randy. Ilya Late says, who are you debating, JL? It is a gentleman that I met or that I came across on Facebook. His name is Joshua. I think his name is Joshua. And hopefully he'll be here. But we were having a conversation on a post that I made in a group, and he responded, said he wanted to debate, so we set it up. Johnny's going to moderate, so we'll see. It's scheduled to be at 3. This is kind of a set the table kind of deal. So appreciate you being here, Ilya, another member of the Godless Army. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Alexander Shaden Matal, I hope I pronounced that correct, says, relatively new watcher, lost my faith recently. Christian life without it is weird, but no intention of going back. I absolutely get that. Indoctrination is a bitch, for lack of a better phrase. There were times early on after I deconverted. I mean, it actually took a long time for me to kind of to come out, to be like, I am no longer atheist. That's how hardcore the kind of public pressure, or I would say the societal pressure is on this. And when you first realize that this doesn't reflect reality, this is not logically consistent. When you start recognizing these things and you eschew your faith, a faith-based system, when you eschew religious ideology or this in favor of evidence, then it can be very, very difficult. And I was pretty much an atheist for a while. I was an atheist for a while before I was able to, I was confident enough to be like, just so socially speaking, to say I am an atheist in front of people that were in public. Because, when I was younger, anybody who said, like, I am an atheist would just, they're tar and feather that guy. Get that dude out here, run him out on a rail. It's not socially acceptable at some point. Fortunately, it is more nowadays as our understanding of reality continues to improve. I get that there were moments, that responsibility, that sense of responsibility for your actions and your inactions, for the sense of responsibility for your own life, is a heavy weight for someone who has never had to carry it. Those who are indoctrinated from birth or indoctrinated, from childhood, have never been taught to carry the weight of the responsibility for their own lives, for their actions and their inactions, for the things that they say and the things they don't say. And when you suddenly pick up that responsibility, that's a heavy burden. You know, that realization alone can send people screaming back to their faiths so that they don't have to deal with that. That's terrifying. But once you're able to acclimate to that, once you recognize that it's actually not a terrifying, that it's actually empowering, that's when that's when it's easier to move on. It's important to have support groups on this, important to have people that you can talk to that can answer questions that you may have. Like I said, I'm always here. My email address is in the about section, so you can always email me if you have questions about things. I'm more than happy to lend any kind of support I can to anybody who is currently deconverting or is, just has questions about their faith because questions have arisen and they don't readily have a place to find answers, or they don't feel comfortable in asking anyone because everyone around them is a part of the same faith. This happens a lot. Small inclusive communities. Someone suddenly says, this is not right, but they can't do anything because they would be socially ostracized. I totally get that. So feel free, anybody, if you're on the verge or if you're on the fence or if you just have questions or if you have observed something or encountered a behavior that does not jive with what you have been taught or indoctrinated to believe, talk to somebody. I'm always open. Always open. But good to have you here, Alexander. Thanks so much for hanging out. Do appreciate it. Ida Pimp Ho is here. Good to see you. Another member of the Godless Army says, hey, JL, good to see you. Haley Taylor as well. Good to see you. Oh, you changed your name. But good to see you, Haley, member of the Godless Army. Thanks so much. Appreciate you being here. Yes, Colorado Biker, the evil YouTube algorithm is not good. It is not. Dib is here. Sorry I'm late, Matt. You haven't missed nothing. We're just catching up. Good to see you, Dib. Thanks so much. Facty's here as well. Good to see you, Facty. Colorado says, cunt Hoover's lack of any intelligence. Absolutely. Mr. Millord is here, member of the Godless Army. Says, hello, fitness friends. Good to see you, Mr. Millord, all the way from Chicago. Thanks so much for hanging out. Charlie Welch, there's the man, member of the Godless Army. Don Pennington as well. Good to see you. H. Jasper, another member of the Godless Army. Thanks so much for being here. Let's see. Just Call Me Abby says, doing it. Oh, dang it. The chat didn't appear for me. Had to reload 5 times. Anyway, Pooh5 here. Good to see you. Just Call Me Abby. Thanks for hanging out, bud. Let me see here. I'll make sure I didn't miss anybody. Maynard Saves here. Oh, yes, Maynard Saves and takes half damage. Good to see you, Maynard. Thanks so much for hanging out, bud. And I think I got... oh, wait, Haley Taylor says, I'm a dyslexic, agnostic, insomniac. I lay awake at nights wondering if there really is a dog. Absolutely. I love that joke. That's a good one. And no, during this, I'm not debating Darth. Darth won't come near me at all. Darth will not speak with me. He won't speak with me at all. That's just because if you get under Darth's skin, if you in some way like offend his sensibilities, or if you literally if you demonstrate that Darth either doesn't know what he's talking about or that he is completely wrong like that, he'll just write you off as a troll. And at this point right now, it's gotten to where he just blocks anyone who even associates with other people. So it's not just Tom Rabbit. It's not just Jack Angstrike. It's not just myself. It's not just anybody. It's not just anybody who has stood up against him and shut him down, like King Xerxes or anybody else, or Taco, or there's so many. It's not just them. It's anybody who associates with them. So just by virtue of me watching Tom Rabbit's channel, he will not engage. He will never engage with me. Not to mention the fact that I called him out for various things, but nonetheless, dude's an angry dude, and he's going to die alone. So, what are you going to say? Colorado Biker, yes, Betamax is still a very good quality camera system. It is. Betamax is still very, very good. Let me see. Yeah, Archivist 17 is too many communication channels. Absolutely. Yeah, I will watch that video, Tony. I promise. I will watch the video. Tron Prawn. This is true. This is true. All right, make sure I didn't miss anybody. Don't take responsibility, just blame Jeebus or Satan. You got it, Colorado Biker. Absolutely. All right, come on, Dan. My pleasure, Alexander. Absolutely, my pleasure. NA's here, another member of the Godless Army. Thanks so much for hanging out. Appreciate that. Mr. Lord, I also liked my Zune. I had the Halo edition of the Zune. And because I used to work for GameStop EB Games way back. Well, this was back before the merger. I worked for GameStop, and that was when the Halo Zune came, the Halo Zune or Halo Edition Zune came out, and it had like virtually almost no memory, could barely hold music, but it looked cool as shit. But I had one of those because I was a tremendous Halo fan. You can see the Master Chief helmet right there, hanging out in my closet. So, but I did like my Halo Zune. Festive Phrase here says, I've been an atheist for 50 years, and since I've become an atheist, I'm far more accepting of others and their differences than I could have ever been as a theist. Agreed. Because religion, the fundamentalist religion, or religion in and of itself, gives a reason why other people are wrong and why other people are not the same as you. It is religions are inherently excluding. Okay, it is a group of individuals. It's a tribalistic group of individuals that have their own principles and their own beliefs. And if you don't adhere to that, you are out. They will, and oftentimes, like long ago, you would be kept out of the group. You'd not be able to interact with them. They won't interact with you. They won't do business with you. They won't hang out with you. They won't support you if you're in crisis. You're that part of the community that they will ignore because they don't want that external influence amongst them. So, yeah, they're inherently excluding. So, which is just no way for a society to be. Let me see here. Frank Perry, member of the Godless Army, says, I have grown up in a Roman Catholic Church and even spent 6 months in seminary. I do have my crisis of faith, but my feeling is there is something, but you have the right to your thoughts too. And you also have the right to believe what you want to believe. I got no problem with you believing whatever you want. I will fight till I'm burger for your right to believe whatever the heck you want to believe. And if you want to believe in a God, that's fantastic. But I see it, but like this is the more intellectually honest response. I do have my crises of faith, but my feeling is there is something. My big argument is that Christians today need to accept the fact, or need to at least address the fact that the Bible in and of itself is completely and totally outdated. Okay, like the Egyptian coffin texts, or stuff that was pulled from even older civilizations. These books, these ancient tomes, there's so many of them we reject, but the Bible or the Quran or the Torah, for some reason we're still clinging to. Okay, these ancient books need to go the way of mythology. If there is an entity out there, we understand enough about reality now that this entity is described in the Holy Book or in the Bible or the Quran or if you want to go back further, the Torah. This entity cannot exist. We know too much about reality, because obviously we know more about reality now and fundamentally understand more about reality than they did when these beings were conceived. Our knowledge and understanding have acted like negative selection pressures against the Abrahamic God. As we have improved, we begin to realize that there are aspects of the Abrahamic God that can't be, because they violate the laws of reality. They simply create logical contradictions that can't exist, that are like one-ended sticks or square circles. So the Abrahamic God adapts or evolves or mutates in order to try and survive the logical entailments of what was created then. And so now, and I address this all in my debate, I don't want to give too much away, but when it comes down to it, nowadays it's not Christianity. Nowadays it's literally deism. It's deism with Yahweh slapped on it. Is essentially what it is. It's an argument for deism, because doubling down or putting your money down on Christianity in and of itself this is why it gets you in trouble every time. This is why individuals like Darth Dawkins, who do this all the time, who spent 10 years, who spent the past 10 years for the past 12 years arguing for their God, when in actuality arguing, but they never say that they're Christian. They never say they're arguing for the Christian God. They simply say they're arguing for God. They are apologists for God, but they never state specifically what faith or what denomination. They're just saying for God. Is because they are essentially arguing for deism. They're arguing for a variety of deism. And then, once you've accepted their variety of deism, they pop the Yahweh label on there and says, now you're a Christian. Not the way it works. Not the way it works. Fundamentally flawed in its presentation. But that's essentially what it is. It's because the Abrahamic God, much like any other God, cannot exist. So, let me see here. Blofeld 20K, you just recovered from a PC crash. Thought I was late, maybe. Happy I'm not. You are not late, Blofeld, but good to see you. Thanks so much for hanging out. Do appreciate it. Mr. Malord says, I'm a non-practicing Catholic. Don't need practice when perfect. Chili de Castro syndrome. Edison Carter's here. Good to see you, Edison. Thanks so much for hanging out. I do appreciate it. It's a me, Mario Rui, member of the Godless Armies here. Thanks so much for being here, Mario. We do appreciate it. Exclusionary, yes. Yes, very exclusionary. Let me see here. Victory Joker's here this afternoon, JL. Good to see you, Victory Joker. Thanks for hanging out. I do appreciate it. Maddie B says, I was brought up in a church-going family, Methodist. I also was Methodist. I stopped attending the church in my early teens, and I was never persuaded by any of their arguments as to God's existence to go back. Neither was I. In fact, it was an event when we were in service that was essentially the first question that popped into my mind. It says, wait a minute, why would we do that if this? Why X if Y? And that logical contradiction is what started my journey, and that was about that was about 13. It was shortly after confirmation. Shortly after my confirmation, I think it was probably 6 months after my confirmation, and I think I was pretty sure I was 13. But I remember the question specifically: why would we do this if this? And that's where it all began. That's when the snowball ran downhill. Let's see here. Oh, I think I'm almost caught up. Sean Galloway's here. Yep, I see that. Dumbfuck Dawkins. Absolutely. Frank Perry says, the Bible was a way for them to pass teaching down through the ages. It is not a textbook, as I know there are things in science that tell me one thing, but having this faith has saved my life. I get that. I absolutely get that. I personally would argue that it was you that saved your life. That holding on to a specific thing that gave you a psychological, that provided a psychological utility for you is what helped you save your life. But you saved your own life. You just needed something. You needed something like a foci, like a focus, to get you into the mental state that would allow you to save your own life. Is essentially what I would argue. So, and that's fine. If it does provide a psychological utility for you, then absolutely hold on to it. Yeah, I got no issue. I got no qualms with that whatsoever. So long as it's not running around trying to influence legislation based upon, that psychological utility. Edison Carter says, religious culture always flip-flopping their religious texts are now figurative instead of literal when experiments and investigations are in direct contradiction with their infallible deity words. Exactly. Think about it. Anybody here in this live chat who was a Christian and is now maybe an agnostic, now maybe is a deist, now is maybe an atheist, think about the progression. There was a time when the Bible was infallible, and that's what it was. But as it progressed, as time has gone on, suddenly sections of it are metaphorical. How sections of it are now allegorical. Now some are history, but they're not really well written down because the people who wrote it weren't really cognizant of everything that was going on around them. So it's kind of a skewed version of history, but it's still kind of there. It keeps changing to the point that invariably it's just another holy book that makes a lot of silly claims about reality because it was written by people that lacked a fundamental understanding of reality. Not to mention that when you take concepts like Jesus really hated the Hellenists, and any information coming out of the Hellenists was regarded by many Christians to be heretical. And so this is why some Christians reject the Septuagint, so other Christians, they don't reject the Septuagint. They think it's divinely inspired. This is where we run into these problems, so the subjectivity of the religion of itself. Everybody can take a piece, everybody can interpret it. It's literally a salad bar. Take what you like, ignore the rest. Let's see. Well, it jumped on me. If God exists, Mike Mayhem is here. If God exists, explain chili. That's damn good. Yeah. I actually have a response deal that I'm working on for chili that he recently dropped. It's going to be something short. It's him contradicting himself. The man-child is a walking contradiction. Is absolutely full of crap and obviously a liar. So, and of course, he won't talk to anybody about these things. He won't answer these questions. He won't address the inconsistencies in his story as to why he dropped out of the fight. It's just, but we pretty much know what he is. He's a grifter and he's a liar. And he knew that Lee Educator was going to just eat. He was going to take his lunch money. That's what Lee Educator was going to do. He's going to straight take his lunch money, and Chili's ego or his pride couldn't handle that. So even if it was for charity. Let's see here. Tony Regime says, why does an all-powerful God need his followers to give 10% of their earnings to the clergy? That's a damn good question. It's a very damn good question. Matthew says, with the amount of cherry picking most Christians do, the Bible might as well be a choose your own adventure book. I agree with that. The real big question. Oh, and Alexander says, wait, I missed it. Says, I used to get accused of cherry picking when pointing out infallible versus allegorical. See, that's part of that issue. The big thing. One of the big questions for me that nobody could ever answer, because it always comes down to faith. It always comes down to an application of faith. You must have faith. You must believe first before you can find evidence, which is which is literally no different from confirmation bias, which is indistinguishable from confirmation bias. But the idea was this, that a perfect entity that is omniscient, knowing all true propositions, that is omnipotent, capable of any action, that is not capable of any action that is not logically contradictory, and omnibenevolent. That it, by nature, everything it does is the best positive, is the most positive of all possible actions. Which means that it knows infallibly that every action it will do will be the most positive action that it could possibly perform. And that's the logical entailments of these attributes. And obviously, just by stating that God knows infallibly that every action that it will make is logically consistent and the most positive possible action it could possibly perform. It knows that in advance. So just by stating that, you see the contradictions arise from there. Just by the universe that we observe, if this thing were to exist. So the issue was that how is this eternal, omniscient, omnipotent entity? Why does it predicate everything on faith? Why does it predicate anything on faith? Faith is irrelevant to an omniscient, omnipotent entity. Tests, trials, like pain, death, suffering, all of this is completely and totally superfluous to an omniscient, omnipotent entity. And free will doesn't break that. You can have people who have free will and live in a world where no pain, sin, or death exists for eternity, understanding and knowing everything that you want them to understand and know about you and the relationship that is there. You can have this. Christians call it heaven. That's it. Because the very attributes, if this is all, if God possesses these attributes and this all exists, the existence of all of this, the existence of pain, death, suffering, all evil, all of this completely negates all of these attributes about God. Because they're logically contradictory. Because if any action is logically possible, then God can do it. And if there is the most logically possible, there is an action that is logically possible and is the most positive, which means that, it results in no pain, no sin, we call that heaven. Then because humans exist here, because humans are not simply made in heaven with free will, knowing what we know, understanding what it wants us to understand completely and totally, because we're not made in that state, that's a logical contradiction. Faith is unnecessary. Faith is superfluous. Faith is the excuse that we give because we have no evidence, that humans give because humans have no evidence that this thing exists. So you need to have faith in order to justify a belief in it. Okay? It's an emotional appeal is what it is. I feel this way, so therefore it must be true. Or it serves a psychological utility for me, so therefore it must be true about reality. And people are entitled to believe this. They can believe these things. The problem is when they start walking around telling other people that you need to live by our standards. That's where I draw the line. So, let me see here. Yeah, if God were God as defined, God would not need faith. Matty B says, I am from the area of England where Methodism was started. I have family in the town of Epworth where the Wesley family lived. One of my uncles is a minister. I have been to service in over 30 years. Awesome. How long? Let's see. 13, no, 14 when I stopped going. 14 when I stopped going. 14, 24, 34. 28 years? 28 years for me, I think. I'm pretty sure I haven't been to a service 28 years. Almost 30. Coming up on it. Let's see. Sean Galloway says, I was in a far-right IFB. Ooh, IFB. And my dad, an IFB preacher. I didn't become an atheist till my first tour in combat. Oof, IFB. That's rough. That's hardcore. I did the Chili DeSeal vid. I don't think so. Is that a recent one? Chili DeSeal. I have not seen this, Haley. A link would be great. Matthew says the only Omni property God has is Omni bullshit. Yeah, this is true. This is very true. Basic Trig is in the house. Good to see you, Basic Trig. Thanks so much for hanging out. Do appreciate it. Edison Card says, I'm still interested to find out how certain religions can define a direction in which to find an afterlife. Yeah. I get that. I absolutely get that. Maddie B says, I grew up in Scunthorpe as my dad worked on the steelworks, but have family all over the area around Epworth, Haxey. Very cool. Awesome. That's amazing. I love the fact that there are people in my chat that are from all over the world. I absolutely love that. There's your proof for flat. There's your proof for around Earth right there. Time zones, baby. Blofeld 20K says, I tend to see that as a need to see yourself and your experience in some way special or significant divine intervention. Absolutely. The need to feel special is a big thing. The need to feel, because we look around and we only see humans experiencing the world and articulating things about the world in the way that humans do. Because we seem to be alone. We appear to be alone in this understanding. Then we must be special because of all the millions of other species that exist on the planet. They don't. So, because they don't, we must be unique. No, we are not. We understand that through phylogeny. We understand that through genetics, through basic biology. Human beings are not special. Human beings are the last ones of our genus. All the other members of our genus died out. All the ones that were increasing, that were similar to us. We just happen to be the last ones remaining. That's it. So all of the rest of them died out or interbred with us and basically bred themselves out of existence. So no, Homo sapiens are not special. We just happen to be along a particular branch in the food chain. As a matter of fact, our reasoning and our ability to reason and extrapolate things in a complex, our ability for complex abstract thought is the only thing that separates us, because we're pretty shit when it comes to anything else in the world. Throw a human being in the ocean, they suck. Throw a human being in the woods without very, very specific training, they suck. Human beings are physically terrible. It's all up here, but physically we're just awful. Oh, Alice Caffrey's from Dublin, Ireland. Very cool. I wonder if you've run into Irish Demon. I wonder if you have. I don't know. But Elizabeth Sylvester is here. Good to see you, Elizabeth Sylvester. It says, hey, JL, Bridge the Divide. Elizabeth, a longtime supporter of the channel. Thanks so much for being here. Flat Derp as well is in now. What's up, Flat Derp? Says, what's up, JL? Good to see you, Flat Derp. Hey, let me know what happened with that latest deal. Because I haven't seen it. I didn't know if it ever got done or if Charlie Welch, let me know. Let me know. I'm curious to do an update because I'd like to hear the final outcome. I've seen a bunch of other stuff that came out. I just haven't seen that yet. Ooh, what's this? Somebody. It is cloudy here. I also challenge you to a debate. However, I was not met with a response. Well, apparently somebody just messaged me. This was somebody on YouTube. Just messaged me, said, it's cloudy here. I also challenge you to a debate. However, I was not met with a response. So I'm live right now. Okay, I just messaged him. I just responded. I'm live right now. Coming over. So yeah, feel free. Come on over. Derp. Yep, Derp. Derp is in the house. Flat Derp is an amazing content creator. I love that most recent one. The dude who's not even worth a cartoon. This is amazing. That's the Flat Derp insult. When you're not worth a cartoon, you're not even worth the cartoon. You're just worth commentary. That is how epic Flat Derp is. Blofeld says, I also think the human habit of seeing yourself, especially as a result of being conscious. It's almost inevitable that you see yourself as some other center of the universe. Agreed. Goosebump 801 is here. Says, hey, JL, trying again. Not sure how long I'll be able to tolerate the logic of whoever you end up debating. Hopefully it will be consistent. Or it will be not consistent. Hopefully it will be civil. I think it will be. As a matter of fact, like this person who just messaged me and was like, I challenge you to a debate, but you never responded. I respond to virtually all of my comments. Anybody in this live chat knows that I respond. I take time to recognize that people are taking the time out of their day to respond to my content. Whether it's positive or negative, I don't care. But I respond to everything. You know, even if I'm only able to like the comment and hit the thumbs up, you know, I try to respond to every single comment I get. I even go into the studio and pull up comments I haven't responded to make sure I haven't missed any, because the notification system is really freaking jank. So, I don't know if it's a debate with Cloudy, or is it Cloudy, or is it Cloudy Coyote? Oh, it's Cloudy Coyote. Ah, yeah, Cloudy Coyote. Cloudy Coyote wasn't scheduled for today, but if it's Cloudy Coyote, possibly. Let's see what happens with my current one. We've got 15 minutes until that debate is scheduled to take place. Either debate or conversation. So 15 minutes until that's supposed to take place. I don't know, but if possible, maybe we'll just bring up Cloudy Coyote. You know, any port in a fucking storm. Oh, Flatdrift says, Charlie was in an exclusive video for Frauditor Trolls channel. Oh, very cool. That's awesome. Hey, Caliban, good to see you. Thanks so much for hanging out. Do appreciate it. So, if Ali Malik pops up in the chat, then we'll know that's Cloudy Coyote. Let me see. Hildia for the $5 super chat. Thanks so much for $5 freedom dollars. Says, question, does the belief in the afterlife have to include the belief in a god or deity? No, it does not. Thank you so much for the super chat. I do appreciate that. All of that, every super chat, everything that's coming through is all going into the travel fund for me going out to Ashland. Just to, cover, make sure, like emergency expenses covering food, gas, of course, access, because I will be going to the Ark encounter. I'm looking forward to that. So I appreciate that super chat. All that support is very, very helpful. And of course, during the debate, if any super chats come through, we will star them and we will hold them. So we will star them and hold them so that they can be addressed later on. Because there will be a Q&A after the fact. So Hildia, to answer that question, does the belief in the afterlife have to include the belief in the god or deity? No. Now, it depends upon, how you define what an afterlife is. Completely and totally up to you. There are thousands of different, millions of different versions of what an afterlife is and what it entails. So, typically, okay, so looking at it, the afterlife, the existence of an afterlife does not logically entail the existence of a god. The existence of a god, or a deity, or a sufficiently powerful enough entity does not logically entail the existence of a heaven. Or an afterlife at all, or even a hell. So these are two separate things. Just because a god exists does not necessarily mean that a heaven exists or an afterlife exists. Okay, just because a deity exists doesn't mean it doesn't exist. These are two things that have to be determined independently. You have to say that, just by saying, well, I've demonstrated one, this obviously means that something else is true. That's logically fallacious. So it's just like there was a similar question that I had. There was like. I think this question was actually asked in my comment section. I think it was but I answered it there as well. So there are many representations of what a godless afterlife would be. Victory Joker brings up reincarnation is a godless option of afterlife. Annihilation is pretty much it. Where essentially when your brain dies, that's it. There is no sensation. There is no cognizant awareness. That's it. It's literally the best way I could describe this. The best way I could describe this is when I underwent surgery and I was put under. There was a period of time where I was alive for 4 hours and I am not cognizantly aware of any of that. I'm not even cognizantly aware of the fact that I was sleeping or the passage of time. It was literally, it hit me, I was out, and then I woke up 4 hours later in recovery. So there was no sensation of falling asleep. There was simply I was gone. And it literally jumps from one moment to the next. It goes, I remember kind of closing my eyes, and then that's it. Closing my eyes and then opening them up in recovery. And apparently 4 hours had gone by. But there was no passage in between. There was no sensation of a lost amount of time. There was literally the sensation that I closed my eyes and I woke up and then I opened them back up. And I feel I feel shitty. I feel very groggy from the anesthesia. So that 4 hours that apparently I didn't exist forever, that is what death is. There is no sensation of time. There is no sensation. There is no cognizant, or there is no cognizance of anything. There is no awareness. You simply cease. That's it. Lights out. Done. Oh, I missed this. Oh, okay. Lisa is here. Good to see you, Lisa. I just got here, so missed your answer. The Christian God exists. No, we haven't started yet. This was kind of like the preamble before we get into the debate. The debate is scheduled for 3 o'clock. So here in about 12 minutes is when my opponent is supposed to show up. Same with Johnny O is supposed to be here. They all have the links for showing up, so they could pop in when they're ready, and then we'll kick this bad boy off. Or if they don't, or if my interlocutor does not show up, apparently Cloudy Coyote is available and would like to talk with me. So because he challenged me to a debate, I did respond to Cloudy Coyote's challenge. The problem is that Cloudy kept veering off into other things where we're specifically talking about the existence of the Abrahamic God. But the problem is, the issue was that Cloudy is a Muslim, and my knowledge of the Quran is okay, but not great. I know the Bible way better. I know the Bible considerably better. I know the different versions of the Bible much better. But on the Quran, I'm okay. The only thing I know for certain about Allah is that Muslims have shored up the problem of evil, because they willingly acknowledge that Allah is deceptive and can be cruel and mean, and that this is an aspect of Allah's nature. They understand it and they get this. So that's the only thing they've really shored up, is that evil exists because Allah permits evil to exist, because Allah has created it and permits it to exist. So they shored up the problem of evil, that their God is a dick, but they don't claim it's omnibenevolent at all. So they shored that up, but otherwise it still has the properties that are logically inconsistent. So Hildy says, I had a similar experience when I had surgery. Makes sense. Thanks so much. Not a problem. My pleasure. Absolutely. Thank you, Sean Galloway says, don't forget the like button to feed the algorithm. That's true. I never ask people to hit the like button. I need to get into that habit. Bad YouTuber. I'm a bad YouTuber. Matthew says, since the fight is off you, Irish Demon, Plottle, and Team Skeptic should go to the Ark thing. Maybe the fight is off. Oh yeah, Irish Demon, Plottle, and Team Skeptic should go to the Ark. Maybe dressed as leprechauns. Three Beardsmen and Skeletor. See, that's what's problematic, is that I would love to be able to do something crazy like that. The problem is that the people who run the Ark, the staff that are there, are really, really well trained in in keeping trolls out, like obvious trolls out. Individuals that are coming in to do like critiques or whatever are coming in, and they're coming in to be civil, they'll let them in. Okay, but of course, if I understand, there's no photography inside, and there's no live filming inside, so you can only report back on what you said, what you saw. But they're really good at keeping antagonistic trolls out. So if we came and we did that, they would not allow us in. They wouldn't allow us in. They wouldn't let us buy tickets, because after all, it is a private business, and they have the right to refuse service. So. Oh, there he is. Otangelo G says, of course he exists. If he would not exist, we would not exist. Yeah, that's just an appeal to emotion. Let me see here. Of course, Tangelo Grasso comes up with the worst possible argument to justify the existence of this thing. It's like, no, there's nothing to support that. That doesn't even logically follow. This logically inconsistent. It's like just a God existing and us existing. The two are separate things. Okay? There is no agential reason as to why human beings exist. We exist because we exist in the state that we're in because we evolved into this state. Done and done. There is no purposeful when you say a reason. Okay, why the mechanistic reason why we exist? Evolution is the mechanistic reason why human beings, why Homo sapiens exists. Okay, evolution. If you're talking about an agential reason, like the purpose, okay, there is no purpose for human beings. We determine our own purpose. If all you want to do is walk around and eat and live and breathe and just do the bare minimum and just survive, then you can do that. If you want more, you can do that. So we determine our own purpose. Nothing determines purpose for us, because nothing disempowers a human being more than telling them that they have no purpose other than what is given to them. That is psychological abuse. When you tell someone that you were born solely to perform one function, and everything you do in life should be catered or should be angled at supporting this one particular purpose. And if you are not doing that, you are failing. That is psychological abuse. One of the many problems I have with Christian indoctrination is this whole thing, all things to the glory of God. Is why? Why does an omniscient, eternal, omnipotent entity need any glory whatsoever? It's literally ridiculous. If it knows it is the fundamental basis for all reality, and there is nothing greater than it, why does it need to be gloried? There is literally nothing else to glory than it. It knows it's true. That is just ridiculous. Sorry. One of the many ridiculous aspects of believing in the Abrahamic God. Oh, I kind of got distracted there by the OG. Let me see here. Oh, missed a bunch. So, Javier Herrera is there. Says, hey, JL, in my course on the prestigious Dunning-Kruger Institute, Philosophy for Dummies, it was this question. Would you rather be in an afterlife with Otangelo, or would you rather be in an afterlife with Otangelo, in heaven, or in hell? If there is a heaven and Otangelo has a place there, I'll take the fiery pits. Because at least I know all my friends will be there. Let me see. And George says, oof, sorry about the spam. My internet is being slow, and I was hard-pressed to hit the send button. No, it's a problem. You're all good. It's all good. I didn't even notice anything. Frank Perry says, as I have been feeling very fragile lately, I can't help but wonder what's next, if anything. Oh, I get that absolutely. Oh, there's the man. He just popped in. The man who needs no introduction. Victory Joker says, well, the Bible mentions other gods, so it makes sense that a narcissistic God like the Abrahamic God would want to be glorified. I get that. I absolutely get that. But because that narcissism is inconsistent with a benevolent nature, that is why that's kind of dropped by modern Christians. They kind of like, no, we kind of like slide that away. There are no other gods. There's only this God. And that was just humans misunderstanding things about reality and assuming there were other gods. That's why they wrote it down. This is one of those subjective interpretations about the Bible thing that we've talked so extensively about. Yeah. So, but you have a point there. Absolutely. Yeah, Otangelo, that's not what people claim. That is not what atheists claim. You stop doing that. Okay? Nobody claims that nothing created us. Nobody claims that nothing, obviously nothing, something cannot come from nothing. This is a logical concept.
Never-ending story.
Obviously, something cannot come from nothing. Nobody claims this. Stop doing that. You are a liar. Okay? This has been explained to you at least 100 times. Explained to you at least a dozen by me alone. Stop lying. You keep going back to the same old shtick. And if you bring up, and I promise you, Otangelo, if you bring up the Shroud of Turin, my mods will bounce you.
The what?
The Shroud of Turin.
Oh, okay. You broke up on my end, so.
Yeah. If you bring up the Shroud of Turin, the mods will bounce you. Because then you're just being dishonest. That thing has been debunked 100 times over. And it's been explained to you. So yes, here is Johnny. Johnny O is in the house to moderate the possible debate. We will know around 3 o'clock whether or not there's going to be one. I did get a message from somebody else, from Cloudy Coyote, who I know from Discord, who wants to debate the existence of God. So maybe my interlocutor will be replaced with somebody else. I don't know. All I know is I put the challenge out there. Somebody responded,
and then chickened out.
I don't want to.
We got to stop calling it chicken. We got to stop the chicken, right? So instead of calling him chicken, we need to call him chili. So he chilied out.
He chilied out. Absolutely. The chicken is a noble creature and does not deserve. I know some chickens that will whoop your ass. Why do I feel like freaking? What do I feel like? What's his name? Oh shit!
Which one?
Ken Foree there. Oh, yeah. Rhode Island Red, man.
You had to go to work on a Sunday. What?
Oh, boo. Cygnus TSP is here. Says, did I miss anything good? Had to go to work on a fucking Sunday. That's just jacked.
Yep.
But no, you haven't missed anything yet.
That's the one part of religion that you happily agree with.
Working any day is bullshit. Well, Working any day where you're not doing what you love, that's bullshit.
Yep.
And this, I love doing this. I absolutely love doing this.
Hey, when are you gonna put animatronic ability into Jason back there?
I can't. It's not built for that.
Really? You can't pose his arm?
No, the arms. Okay, so the legs are stationary. They're
Right.
like literally poles, and then the torso pop and then locks onto the it locks onto the legs, and then the arms have deals where they pop in and then they slide down and they lock down. So the arms are literally fixed in position. They won't move at all because they're locked. And then of course the head pops on as well. Yeah.
You would think they would make it where you could at least position the arms, like if you wanted to make it look like he was trying to
Yeah, then his elbow would have to bend because if I stuck his arm out, it literally would be like punching the glass. It'd be punching the case.
I mean, of all the things that would make posable, it would be the arms.
Yeah, you'd think. I think that would be kind of cool to have it up or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah. Oh, Cygnus TSP is a new member of the Godless Army. Thank you so much, Cygnus TSP. Please enjoy all of the very cool emojis that I've made for you, and of course the channel badge, which is the expanding mind meme. The longer you're with me, the more your mind expands. I see what I did there.
I see what you did there.
Yes. And I want to make sure I'm going to pop over to the channel and make sure that I didn't miss any of the milestone chats because those don't come through. Oh, UKPI with a milestone chat. UKPI, thanks so much for being here. Has been a member of the Godless Army for 12 months, for 1 year. UKPI has been a member of the Godless Army. Thank you so very, very, very much. Let me see and make sure I didn't miss any others. You got to check for those milestone chats because they do not come through. Mr. Malort has also been a member of the Godless Army for 12 months. Thank you so much, Mr. Malort. I do appreciate that. 12 months, 1 year, members of the Godless Army. I hope I caught everybody, all of your milestone chats. You realize I got to go back and I got to check those out because those do not come up on StreamYard.
Yep. Who is your interlocutor? Is he just joining?
I think he may be here. I think he might be here.
Let's bring him up. Let's see what we got.
Let's wait for him to get situated.
I think he's here to cook us dinner. Look at this guy.
He may be here. Maybe here cooking out. Can we bring you up? I don't want to interrupt you in what you're doing. I know he can probably hear me. Can we bring you up? Oh, okay.
Oh.
Now let him introduce himself.
You guys hear me?
Hey, how's it going? Let me see if I can. Let me see here.
Volume, yeah.
See if I can adjust his volume. I don't know if I can.
Let's see here. You should be able to do it. We'll do that. There. His mic volume is up now. So you should be able to hear him a little better.
So how's it going, Chief?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I'm good, man. How are you guys doing? Sorry, I'm kind of distracted.
It's okay. I hope you brought enough for the whole group, though.
I guess this thing's worthless. Take that out.
Was
So
that
first and foremost, my name is Josh. There we go. My display name says atheist because the opposite of theism is atheism, and therefore the opposite of atheism is theism. Therefore, I am an atheist. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Okay, so Facty says that's a first barbecue and debate. Bet his steak. No, he looks like he knows what he's doing. I don't think his steaks will come out burnt. He looks like a medium rare guy to me. Oh, I think we may have lost him.
Yep, froze.
Oh no.
There we go. Oh.
Oh no.
There we go. All right.
Better?
Yeah, there we go. Good to go. All right. So I saw that you had messaged me. Were you more? But since you're here, were you more interested in like having a conversation, or do you feel confident enough to present an argument for the existence of your God? And I have Johnny O here from the Plot Hole channel to moderate to kind of like give it structure and make sure that we don't overtalk each other and.
Hold on.
Mm-hmm. No problem. Take your time.
Well, like I mentioned in my DM, there were some talking points that I wanted to make that I hadn't fully validated myself. So when I started looking into it, I realized that the talking point was wrong. More specifically, a common argument that Christians like to make is, if the CO2 levels were any different, we'd either burn up or we'd freeze. But when I actually started to look to verify that claim, I saw that they've been fluctuating for decades, even millions of years. So I can't really make that argument, can I? So I guess I guess it'll be a conversation. Do what?
Oh, nothing. I was getting feedback. Didn't get some feedback from my end. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. And so I guess we can call it a light debate, because I'm sure you'll make some claims that I'll want to counter, and I'm sure I'll make some claims that you'll want to counter, but it's not exactly an official debate. So
okay, I have an argument prepared, and I'll deliver it. I did so I prepped my cross examination and all that stuff. So I got this all set. So like I said, with the way we structured it, Johnny, if you want to run down the structure of it and how we can kind of deliver these things, then feel free, because you're the moderator. I'll put the control and put the reins in your hands.
Cool. Generally, what we would do in these, we have each side present an opening statement, and then after each opening statement, we'll have a 5 or 10 minute period to present your opening arguments, and then a 5 to 10 minute rebuttal of those arguments from the other party. We'll do 2 rounds, 1 round each of that, and then we'll get into a roughly 30-minute Q&A session. During the open Q&A session, we'll have both participants available to answer questions. We would just ask that nobody speak over the other and keep it in the realm of attacking the argument and not the person. During the presentation stage, we'll allow you to have the floor uninterrupted from the other party. I will reserve the right to pop in every now and again and ask clarifying questions. So if I feel that your argument is missing something, I'll ask to clarify your point. Or if I think it's too vague, or if it needs just a little bit more definition, I'll ask for clarification. So in no means do I mean to question your argument during that. I just want you to clarify.
Awesome. As he takes the affirmative, he goes. He go first, correct?
Generally speaking, the affirmation would be the first one to go. However, we'll leave it up to the two of you, seeing as how this is kind of a makeshift as a replacement. So
I will happily allow. I guess a guest on my channel, you're more than welcome to take the lead. Feel free. Just if you want to do like an opening, if you want to introduce yourself and just kind of familiarize the audience with you in your position.
All right. So during this,
sure.
I will mute JL. Sweet. And I will give you Solo. Boom. The floor is yours.
Solo? Okay. Oh, man. That's the spotlight, isn't it? Okay. Well, I guess a quick history about myself. I'm Josh. I was born on the northern side of Fort Worth, Texas. Raised there up until I was 18 years old, and then I joined the Marine Corps. Retired from the Marine Corps in 2017. I was a militant atheist up until late 2016 when I decided to follow Jesus. I believe that God exists. I believe that because of the evidence that I've seen so far. I can't justify all of the evidence that I've seen so far because I haven't researched it enough. But the evidence that I can justify, obviously, I'll talk about it. The evidence I can't justify, obviously, I won't talk about it. Yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
All right, and if you will give your best, the most, whichever talking points you think you have the most position on.
Okay. Well, like I had already mentioned, I did start working on a argumentative introduction, I guess, if that's what you want to call it. But when I got about halfway through, I started to realize that some of my talking points were incorrect. So I guess I could give you what I have so far.
That'll work. And the fact that you are open to criticizing your own information puts you ahead of the game. So,
well, I mean, yeah. So let's see. I hadn't committed it to memory. But essentially, I believe God exists because I believe that objective truth exists. Can you guys hear me? Okay. I believe that objective truth exists. I believe that for one to know what's true, you should be using logic and reason to observe the premises and make up your conclusions. But logic and reason can only get you so far. In order for your conclusions to be true, your premises must also be true. And you can use inductive reasoning to figure out what exactly is true and what exactly is false. Because if you don't know what truth is, then any subsequent conclusions that you come to cannot be true. I know that might sound what's the word I'm looking for? Self-defeating. And I don't really have a response to that, but whatever. I don't know why I'm trying to make that argument anyway. But yeah, in order for one to know the truth, you use inductive reasoning to make examinations and decide for yourself whether it's true or not. People may call that subjective, but of course I believe truth is only objective. If you can't discover what's really true and what's really false, then it can have pretty deadly consequences, both, physically, mentally, and even so far as eternally. So that's number one, why I believe in Christ. Number two, I believe in God because of the cosmological and some of the teleological evidence. Christians commonly make the cosmological argument and the teleological argument, and along with that is the morality argument. I'm not a scientist. I don't believe that science really says anything. I believe that science is just a collection of data points. I believe that scientists say things. I believe that scientists come to different conclusions the way they observe the premises. I believe that sometimes there's a what's the word? I believe that there are sometimes a pre-existing decision made in their hearts that influence how they see things in their mind. And that goes for everybody, not just scientists. So I believe that God created the universe. You and I might even agree that the Big Bang created the universe. I believe it because the acronym SURGE, S is the second law of thermodynamics, U is the universal expansion, R is the radiation afterglow from the original Big Bang, G is galactic seeds. And basically, galactic seeds are variations in the cosmic radiation background or cosmic background radiation that allowed materials to cluster together and form galaxies. And I also believe that the universe had a beginning because Einstein's theory of relativity, including all the predictions that theory made, require a beginning to the universe. As far as the teleological evidence, I can talk about some of it, but I'm not going to talk about all of it because I haven't verified all of it. So I guess I'll just skip over that. And I guess you could say last and most definitely least important, I believe that the New Testament is telling the truth. This is D'Artagnan. He's my favorite chicken.
All right. JL, I'm going to give you the floor so you can present your... One second, we get... Boom. There we are. All right, JL, bring you in, and you may begin. You have to unmute yourself first.
Want to kick it with the opening and then go into the argument? All right. So thank you, Johnny O, for moderating the debate, and thank you to Joshua for coming on the channel to engage with me, and thank you, Joshua, for your service as well. I do appreciate that. This debate is in regards to the existence of the Abrahamic God. So as an atheist, I do not believe in the existence of a God or gods. My conclusion of atheism is predicated on the lack of any sufficient evidence or logical argumentation to support the claim that any such entity exists. But specifically, in regards to the biblically understood Abrahamic God, in the course of this debate, I will demonstrate that not only does the Abrahamic God not exist, but that it cannot exist, by virtue of the logical entailment and the very constants of this reality. Thank you again, Johnny, for moderating. Thank you again to Joshua for being here. So my argument is as follows. As I stated in my opening, I'm going to present the evidence that the biblical Abrahamic God not only doesn't exist, but cannot exist. First and foremost, let's take a quick look at what the Abrahamic God is and how we know what its specific attributes are. Assuming for the sake of the argument that the Abrahamic God exists, then the first place that humans would go to understand this alleged creator would be the Bible. As many Christians believe that the Bible is the inspired or breathed word of God, then it follows that any attributes of God derived from the Bible are ostensibly God describing itself to humans. This, of course, also assumes that the Abrahamic God is not lying about itself and its own nature from the jump. So from the biblical scripture, we can derive that the Abrahamic God is omniscient, or possesses the knowledge of all true propositions, omnipotent or capable of any action that is not logically contradictory, and omnibenevolent, that by its nature, every action it takes is the most positive action logically possible. From these understood attributes, we must then take everything we understand about reality and logic, and then determine if the existence of such an entity is logically consistent or even possible. From a standpoint of logic, one needs only to see that the attributes themselves result in logical contradictions, predominantly due to the omniscient attribute. Essentially, if the creator deity possesses the knowledge of all true propositions, and it is a true proposition that a world without evil can exist, and humans can have free will there, basically what Christians call heaven, and this is the most positive action logically possible regarding the ultimate fate of humans, then the existence and persistence of anything other than this world would contradict the very attributes that the biblical God has ascribed to itself. The existence of any test, trial, or tribulation in life contradicts the omniscient nature of this entity, as its nature would render any outcome entirely superfluous. And the existence of evil, pain, and death contradicts all the attributes of the aforementioned, all of the aforementioned attributes, if the aforementioned heaven can in fact exist, and humans are not simply created there with free will and understanding everything that God wants them to understand. And since logical contradictions, such as a one-ended stick or a square circle, cannot exist, we can then conclude that by virtue of the logical entailments of the attributes derived from the Bible itself, that the biblically understood Abrahamic God does not exist. But it's from a more empirically based perspective that we can determine that the biblical Abrahamic God does not exist, or that it cannot exist. And this is by virtue of the proposed attribute of omniscience. As German physicist Stephanie Wenner and Swiss quantum researcher Esther Hanji explained in their 2012 quantum physics paper, uncertainty relations state that there exist certain incompatible measurements to which the outcomes cannot be simultaneously predicted, and that violating the uncertainty relations in quantum mechanics leads to a thermodynamic cycle with positive network gain, ultimately a violation of the second law of thermodynamics. In essence, the uncertainty relations in quantum mechanics are the way they are because they cannot be otherwise. If they were, then we would observe a resulting closed system of our universe, fundamentally different than the one that we currently observe. The existence of an omniscient entity within the isolated system that we call the universe would have disastrous empirical effects on that very system. While this presented evidence does conclude that deism, a sufficiently powerful creating entity, dystheism, a malevolent God or deceiving God that hides evidence of its existence from humans, or atheism, that such entities do not exist anywhere other than human imagination, are all logically consistent conclusions depending only upon one's epistemology. It certainly concludes logically and empirically that the biblically understood Abrahamic God not only does not exist, but cannot exist. Thank you.
All right. There we are. Okay, so we've gotten to, I guess we have gotten to both sides' arguments. So who would like to take the rebuttal position of the argument? Or what 3 points would we like to focus on, because there was a lot given by both sides?
Well, I'll say for certain that I don't want to focus on the Bible itself, because Christianity would be true if the Bible never even existed in the first place. So just because the Bible says that God exists doesn't mean God exists.
Fair.
Secondly, the what was his name? Heisenberg's uncertainty principle only states that. Oh, what was it? That electrons cannot be predicted. Electron speed and location cannot be predicted, but that doesn't mean that they were not caused. Is it Heisenberg or Eisenberg? Which one is it?
That would be the Heisenberg uncertainty principle.
Heisenberg. Okay, I do remember correctly. Okay. Yeah, that's all I got.
All right. So, JL, how would you address those points?
So the assuming that they're okay, so addressing the idea that the Big Bang is a creation was a point of creation. It's not an accurate way of depicting the Big Bang. That the Big Bang didn't cause anything to occur. It's not what physicists say. The Big Bang in itself was an event, was the expansion event, and it's where the beginning of the observability of our universe stems from. So that's where we can measure back to, and beyond that, we can't really state anything about other than the existence of the quantum field, which is ostensibly where the fluctuations of the quantum field resulting in the creation of our universe, the way we observe it, and that the beginning of that observability was the expansion event, which we call the Big Bang, and then from that moment is when things begin to occur. And so the Big Bang didn't really create anything. Things were a result of the Big Bang. But there's no creation because to use the term creation or to create implies like an agential action. So given what we know, what we understand about the universe, what we understand about reality and stuff, so I want to ask about the kind of appeals to emotion that you utilize in your argument, and just kind of like address something. So in your position, from your position, if a particular belief provides a psychological utility to a person, does it logically follow that the belief is true about reality?
Basically, if your belief makes you feel good, does it make it true? Absolutely not.
Okay, so it doesn't logically follow. Okay, that's what I was. So which would hold more bearing?
And actually, if I sorry to talk over you.
Go for it.
I had actually. Now that you mentioned that, I had actually stated something that in my opening argument that I was preparing for a legitimate debate, which I guess is what we're having now. I said something on the lines of a lot of people come to their conclusion based on what they find attractive versus based on what they find true, which of course can be very dangerous. For example, if a junkie finds meth very attractive, he can get a temporal benefit from it, but eternally this person is not going to be very okay. Therefore, it is important to know what objective truth is, not just what makes you feel comfortable.
Okay, so in given objective truth, so you're meaning so when you say objective truth, it's can you clarify what you mean by that? Because
objective truth is you and me talking to each other right now.
So that would be demonstrable truth. So that would simply be truth, because because I'm curious as to what philosophy of truth that you adhere to, like coherency, what branch of truth do you adhere to?
I'm not a philosophy student. I've never taken any philosophy. I've read some things here and there on the internet, as reliable as that is. But I mean, as far as philosophy goes, I can't really answer that. I can't give you a philosophical answer for what is my philosophy, if that makes any sense.
Okay, so in essence, in philosophy, the five main theories of truth: the correspondence theory of truth, the coherence theory of truth, pragmatic, redundancy, and semantic. And essentially, it's for each person to kind of determine for themselves, like how they determine what is true. And I prefer that which corresponds with reality. So,
Yes.
so I would say that we're both correspondents, but then I also pillar that upon pragmatic, which is what leads to inquiry. And then, of course, coherence, that which is coherent with what we understand about reality, that which reflects what we observe about reality, and that which allows us to ask questions and doesn't stymie further inquiry. So I pillar my philosophy of truth on these things. So given that we agree upon that, if it comports with reality, then what I'm curious about is, like, since you predicate these on most of these on how you feel about them, is there evidence that you have that corresponds with reality or is coherent with what we understand about reality that would support the claim of this existence? Or is it simply predicated upon how you feel?
Well, what did I say that made you think I believe what I believe because I feel it?
Well, in your opening statement, there was the whole thing is like finding something attractive or finding something that makes you feel better, like feel good, or supply some sort of psychological utility would be an emotional appeal. It'd be
Sure.
that it feels like it's true, so therefore it is true.
Okay,
So,
I agree with that.
Okay, so but you've also agreed that logically does not entail that it actually is true and representative of a reality.
Right. So what did I say that I'm contradicting myself with?
No, I'm asking you that how can you say it's true about reality if it's predicated on how you feel? Because it doesn't logically follow that it does.
That.
Huh?
I don't believe that.
So,
all right. So, for the sake of advancing the conversation, could you clearly state what it is you do believe? That way, we can make sure we're arguing the correct thing here.
Well, I believe that objective truth is the objective state of being that correlates with reality, as we've discussed.
and there's some difficulty. That's where my difficulty understanding is, because if you say that there's an objective truth, then there is a subjective truth. But a subjective truth wouldn't be a truth. That would just be an unjustified belief. So
right,
there
the opposite of true is false. Sure,
exactly. That would just be it would be something that I am claiming that I can't back up, or be like an unfalsifiable concept. Would be something that would be hypothetical in that respect, or a hypothesis, like an educated guess, but I don't really know. I don't know the outcome. So, by saying objective truth, there's a direct implication that there's a subjective truth, and there really isn't. There is. So we just say that there is truth, and there are things that we know to be true, and there are things that we know that are false, that are not true, and there are things that we do not know if they are true or false.
Well, sure, but when you say there's an objective truth, you said something on the lines of saying that there's objective truth implies that there is a subjective truth, and I don't agree with that. I believe that if there is objective truth, there are subjective interpretations of that truth that lead you to different conclusions.
But those subjective interpretations wouldn't be the truth.
Exactly.
Right. So we would just say that they're not true, that they're false, and that so there's truth and there's false. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Trying to nail down kind of the terminology there is that it's a little weird saying that there is an objective truth because of what the entailments of that are. So it's to say, okay, so if God is true and is a true proposition, then I'm kind of curious as to how that's justified. Because all that was presented was like how you can say it's true instead of just like it's something that you believe and you predicate on, say, I don't know, faith.
Well, first off, let me remind you guys that I'm not 100% prepared for this, but I'm doing this anyway in front of your audience, which, based on the YouTube comments, are all atheists.
There's a few believers in there. Yeah.
Well, I haven't seen them back me up or anything like that, but okay, I'll take your word for it. Now, can you reinstate? Can you state your second half of that again? Because I already forgot. I'm kind of stupid.
No, it's all good. Essentially, that the vast majority of your intro is that you predicated the belief on emotional appeals. That it feels a particular way, it feels true, so therefore it is true. but it's already been established that just because you feel that something is true doesn't logically entail that it is true about reality. So would it be better off, would it be, instead of cloaking it and saying that it's there's objective truth and subjective truth in order to kind of fit it through that keyhole, would it not be better to say that it's predicated on something like faith in that respect? Or instead of saying that it is a thing that is true, it's something that I believe about reality, but I cannot, I can't demonstrate that it is, instead of saying that it, instead of like burying the needle in, like objective or subjective truth.
Well, when it comes to faith, you might have a different understanding of what faith is than I do. For me personally, and I'm sure some Christians have their own definitions as well. But for me personally, faith is sort of a conjunction between belief that plus trust in. If I were to give you some examples, I would say that I believe that God created the universe, therefore I trust in His ultimate power. Another example would be, I believe that Jesus touched a leper and cured him, therefore I trust in His power over famine, etc., etc., etc. And so I don't, if I worded it wrong, or if it was because I was unprepared or whatever, I didn't mean for my introduction to seem appealing to emotions, which is why I said that. I'm pretty sure I said that my most important, for me, the most important evidence for God's existence is the fact that we can know objective truth, and that objective truth exists. I should have said that backwards. Let me try again. Okay. The number one reason I believe that God exists is because, number one, I believe that truth exists, objective truth, and number two, I believe that objective truth is knowable based on making inductive reasoning.
Okay, so that we can use induction to understand what is true about reality.
True.
Okay, so in that respect, what evidence? So that would predicate that there is evidence that God exists.
Well, that's the part that I'm kind of struggling with, that I haven't fully ironed out yet. I don't believe that the Big Bang I don't believe that the Big Bang by itself is proof that God exists, but I believe that the fine tuning, or I think the common terminology is intelligent design that comes after the Big Bang, that supports the Big Bang and is not possible without the Big Bang, is evidence for God. Which, again, let me remind you, there were some intelligent design arguments that I were trying to make before we started this that I discovered were not true. Therefore, I'm still doing research.
So, okay, so going back to the argument that I presented, the logical contradictions of the biblically understood God, that, if we're essentially, as a Christian, and trying to figure out things about God, then we would have to go to the Bible, because it's like the source. It's essentially it's the source of the claim. So you go to the Bible to understand what you know about.
I don't believe that the Bible is the source of the claim. I believe that God's existence plus Jesus' existence and resurrection is the source of the belief. I know that humans wrote the Bible. I know that Moses wrote most of the Old Testament, and I know the New Testament had several authors, and all authors had different literary styles, and it makes it difficult to interpret the Bible. And I know that in the beginning, well, let me rephrase that. I know that when the Bible was first written, the Old Testament and the New Testament, there were never verses and chapters. They were put in, I think, 300 something years ago to help us navigate the text. But again, I have to repeat myself. I don't think that the Bible is. I don't think that the Bible in and of itself is evidence that God exists, because I believe that even if the Bible did not exist, that does not mean that the events in ancient history did not happen.
I can agree with that. And but going back to what I presented was that the understood biblical Abrahamic God, as understood, that my argument was that this thing not only does not exist because logical contradictions cannot exist just by virtue A equals A is not equal to not A. If A, then B, then therefore A, B, so on and so forth. Because the law of identity, the law of excluded middle, and the law of non-contradiction. That by virtue of these classical logic, and the logical contradictions that are presented by what is understood to be the biblical Abrahamic God, that this God itself cannot exist, does not or cannot exist because it's defined in a logically contradictory fashion. Or essentially, if the Bible is the breathed word of God, then what was breathed into that book or breathed to those authors was not correct because it does not comport with reality because it's a logical contradiction. But then on the empirical side of it, being that the second law of thermodynamics is a physical law and it's something that we can measure, then given that and the violating the uncertainty, which omniscience would violate the uncertainty relations in quantum mechanics, that there are certain, like stated before, sorry, I want to make sure I get my source right, that uncertainty relations state that there exist certain incompatible measurements to which the outcomes cannot be simultaneously predicted. Okay? So, given what we know about that, and that the second law of thermodynamics is predicated upon that, because violating those uncertainty relations would result in a thermodynamic cycle with positive network gain, which was be a direct violation of the second law of thermodynamics that we would empirically observe. Given that we do not observe this, and the universe looks the way we observe the universe the way it is, then we can say that it doesn't say that an entity doesn't exist. It simply says that the biblically Abrahamic God does not exist because this being cannot be omniscient and exist and persist within this isolated system by virtue of its omniscience, violating the uncertainty relations of quantum mechanics. So we can't have that violation. The violation does not exist because therefore the second law of thermodynamics would be violated. Therefore, positive network gain. So, given this, I'm not saying that a sufficiently, like I said, deism could potentially be an outcome, a sufficiently powerful enough entity that created everything and then just pissed off with no evidence of its existence left behind, or dystheism, a malevolent entity that is deliberately hiding the evidence of its existence, like it's causing these effects, but then using its power to hide them from us so that we don't see it, which would be dystheism, or atheism. That we're just intellectually honestly concluding that we cannot determine if these things exist. They are unfalsifiable. Therefore, we reject them on those grounds of methodological naturalism. So, in that respect, the whole argument is simply about the God that's understood from the Bible, the Abrahamic God, by virtue of how it has been described to us. This thing cannot exist.
So maybe I might be misunderstanding the Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, because from what I read the other day, Heisenberg's uncertainty principle only states that you cannot. Well, I don't want to say cannot, but I guess I can say you can't predict the speed or location of an electron. Am I misunderstanding that?
So the uncertainty principle. Let me make sure I'm actually saying it correctly.
And of course I'm putting it in a nutshell.
Yeah, the uncertainty principle states that we cannot know both the position and speed of a particle, such as a photon or electron, with perfect accuracy. The more we nail down the particle's position, the less we know about its speed, and vice versa.
Well, that's probably because we're interfering with it, but.
But if God is omniscient and knows all true propositions, the true propositions of the speed and velocity of that particle would be known by God simultaneously by virtue of its omniscience.
Helps if I don't mute myself, JL. Let's allow Josh the opportunity.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I'm just clarifying. My bad. Go ahead, Josh.
So let me make sure I understand you correctly, because like I said, I'm kind of stupid. You're saying that I think we can agree that that Heisenberg's uncertainty principle specifically states that you cannot pinpoint subatomic particles in relation to their speed and their location. And the closer that we get, the farther they move away from us, from our observation.
The closer we get to one value, the further we are away from the other value. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we can't know both values
so
simultaneously.
the closer we know the speed, the less we know the location.
Exactly.
And vice versa. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I do understand it.
Because knowing both would create a thermodynamic cycle of positive network gain instead of negative gain.
I haven't gotten there yet.
Okay, yeah. So there you go. Yeah, go ahead.
And because the Bible claims that God is omniscient, meaning He knows everything. These subatomic particles' speed and location cannot be known to God. Is that what you're saying?
No, that they would be known to God
by virtue of God.
Yeah, because the speed and because each particle has a speed and a velocity, and those values would be true propositions in reality.
Yeah, I get that.
There you go. Okay, cool.
So how is that proof that God does not exist or God does not know everything?
Because by knowing these two things because the second law of thermodynamics is predicated upon the inability to ascertain that information. Okay, so if you were to know them and establish them, then you would invariably create a thermodynamic cycle, or knowing them would create a thermodynamic cycle of positive network gain.
Well, knowing is not a cause. You have to make a choice to do something in order to create a cause.
No, simply being aware of them, simply knowing them both would result in that. And this is described through, and I can bring up. 1 second, I got to bring it the.
Man, that chicken smells good. I hope it's done. I only took the temperature for one of those chicken breasts. I hope they're all the same.
So in essence, where this stems from was when physicists were trying to determine why the uncertainty relations are the way they are, why they take the form that they take, and then what would happen if we were to violate those. Like, what would be the proposed result of knowing both of these things simultaneously? And through the math of quantum mechanics, we can understand that knowing these two things is why that results. That's the proof, the mathematical proof that knowing both of these things simultaneously, both of these values, these true values simultaneously, inherently violates the second law of thermodynamics, and that the second law of thermodynamics is predicated upon the inability to know these two things.
So my response is going to be very familiar to you, and if it is, I'm happy about that, because the more that Christians reinforce this response, the more publicly known it becomes, and the more publicly known it becomes, the more people can circle back and actually attempt to understand this response. Okay, so number one, the Heisenberg uncertainty principle states that no one can know both the speed and the location of subatomic particles. The second law of thermodynamics states that everything in order goes to disorder, aka entropy. If somebody were to know, well, let me rephrase that. If God were to know the speed and the location of subatomic particles, it would create an increase in the energy available in the universe, therefore violating Newton's second law of thermodynamics. And the reason this does not happen, and like I said, you've heard this before, I know you have, is because God is not bound by natural law. God does not fall within the parameters of the first or second laws of thermodynamics. God probably doesn't even care about mathematical equations, right? But I will say that whatever quantum mechanics says, I'm not even going to pretend like I know it says anything, or I'm not even going to pretend I know anything that it says, because I don't. But I will say that Newton's laws of thermodynamics are an effect of the universe's creation. And yes, I purposefully use creation, the word creation.
So I actually, in how I concluded that of the logically consistent conclusions, then that would fall within dystheism. So that would allow for a God that this is the way it is, and that this God is deliberately obfuscating the evidence of its existence in order to predicate, whatever on faith or free, whatever, for whatever reason. I don't want to, speculate to that, but that would mean that God is using its power in order to obfuscate its existence by hiding or removing the empirical evidence of its omniscience. So in essence, it's there, and it's wandering around doing whatever it does, and it just by virtue of its nature, it's violating the uncertainty relations, resulting in this thermodynamic incline, but is then altering that so that we can't detect it, which would fall within the dystheism realm, because that's essentially the God that is deliberately hiding itself from us, deliberately obfuscating reality from us. So, which would not comport with an omnibenevolent entity, or where all actions are where it's the most positive, logically possible action, would not comport, which means the the Abrahamic God cannot exist, because this would be a logical contradiction, because there would be nothing to stop this God from simply coming out, laying all the cards on the table, and simply saying, "Hey, I exist. This is how it is. Now it's your choice whether or not you want to worship me." So, because that would be the most positive thing, because it'd be the most intellectually honest thing, and
I have
human beings make
a
up their minds.
response to that. I have a response to that, but I don't think it's going to be related to does God exist? And if you want to hear it, I'll DM you after this or whatever. So, but anyway, sorry, I kind of cut you off. You can continue if you like.
Oh, no, that was pretty much it. It's just I counted for that because essentially my argument doesn't state that there is nothing out there, because there are unfalsifiable concepts of like sufficiently powerful enough entities that we just can't disregard because they're unfalsifiable. I can't say that deism is false because it's unfalsifiable. We can't make a determination one way or the other. There's just no sufficient evidence in order to conclude that is a possibility. There is as equal much evidence for a deity as a sufficiently powerful deity as there is like the universe came from a unicorn fart. So they're on equal footing. So, but what we can say to advance our understanding and recognize that just like older ancient religions have moved into the realm of mythology, that the Bible in and of itself and the God that it describes, we understand too much about reality. We know these things to be true, and that what is described in the Bible does not jive with what we see about reality. Because if it existed, we would expect to see something else. We don't see that, therefore it's not there.
Which again, you're making natural observations to try to explain an unnatural existence. I know that a common argument is made that if I were to say that God exists outside of time, space, and matter, that's exactly the same thing as saying that he doesn't exist, and that would be true if he did not leave sufficient evidence behind. Okay, let me try to word this the correct way. Some people like to say that because God exists outside of time, space, and matter, that is no different from him not existing at all. That would be true if he did not leave evidence of his existence and of his creation behind him. I had another response that I wanted to make, but I'm having a brain fart right now, so I'll rewatch this video and I'll get back to you.
Okay, cool. Oh,
and if it comes to me, I'll just blurt it out, and I'll probably interrupt you, and I'm sorry about that.
I know that Johnny's going to get to the Q&A here in a second because he's got to go here pretty soon, but I do want to ask one quick question of you. So going on faith. Whereas if I understand it, if you want to know if you go by the Hebrews version of it, or essentially faith is the belief without evidence, because otherwise then it becomes trust or it becomes confidence, which are both evidence based. You can have sliding scales of trust and confidence in a particular thing, based upon prior experience or based upon evidence or a lack thereof. But if faith in and of itself, belief in things unseen, belief in things with no evidence, no justification. If faith can unknowingly be placed in the wrong things, if it can be manipulated by external forces, even without our individual knowledge, even beyond our knowledge, and if it can shift positions entirely upon an emotional state, like I feel a particular way, like the reason why denominations exist. If faith is so malleable in that respect, then why would faith ever be used as a means to get to truth?
Do you want me to answer in my understanding of faith, or do you want me to answer in your understanding of faith?
You can answer it in yours.
Okay. So faith.
So once again, my definition of faith is belief that plus trust in. Belief that is belief that is observation of the evidence, and trust in is the conclusion that I make about the evidence. Which, let me remind you again, I'm not done yet. I'm not done with my investigations. But if I remember correctly, your question was, how is a malleable faith enough for proof of an existence?
Why would we ever use it as a tool? Of all the tools that we have available to us, given the weakness of faith, given that it can be manipulated by external forces, it can be placed in the wrong things without our knowledge, it can be manipulated without our knowledge, that it's malleable via emotions, that the way we feel can lead us to have faith in different things, which is why denominations exist, or why the East-West Schism occurred. So, given the weakness of faith, why would we ever use it? Why would we ever bring it into the conversation? And when we're trying to determine what is true.
Because in order for you to faith is predicated on objective truth, and we would bring faith into the equation if we believe that we know the objective truth.
Okay.
All right. Let me get to a couple of questions from the audience. God equals the square root of -1 says, can people believe things that are false?
Can people believe things that are false? Of course. I mean, I once believed that there was no God.
All right.
Wait, sorry, was it? Are you going to tell us who the question is for?
If the person directed specifically yes, if not, then I'm going to pose it to whoever would like to answer. Generally speaking, I can pull context to who they're asking.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that was directed for you. Goosebump 801 says, has the favorite chicken with a cool name plus 1 point. So you've got a fan. Goosebump 801 also says, I respect Josh for coming on. I think JL misunderstood Josh. He didn't say he believed because it felt good. He explicitly denied that. I'm curious how Josh, justifies and explains his faith. I'm pretty sure you did that previously in the question already.
Which I can answer it again. My definition of faith is believe that plus trust in. I believe that if Earth were anywhere outside of the what's it called? I'm having a brain fart.
The Goldilocks
zone. There we go. If Earth were anywhere outside of the Goldilocks zone, we would either burn up or we would freeze. I believe that is because God designed it that way. Same with Mars. I believe that. Therefore, I trust in His power. I believe that objective truth exists and that we can know it, and I believe that God is the source of objective truth. Therefore, I trust in His word. Does that? Am I justifying it correctly? My faith.
I mean, if that's where your answer comes from, then absolutely. I think that.
Well, let me ask you this. Let me ask it this way: Did you guys understand why I use that as a justification?
JL?
I do. Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I think it's kind of a way because of the implications of like faith from the biblical understood faith, because of the implications of that, which is what I was bringing up in my argument. I think that faith has, I think it's it kind of okay. I don't mean to be I'm trying not to be disparaging this, but a lot of Christians tend to conflate confidence and trust with faith in order to get around that logical entailment. That they tend to meld the two together. They're not synonymous. They're completely different things. But they kind of like blend the two in some way in order to justify having that faith. Which is why I was asking, why would we ever use it? So, but I get why. I totally understand.
Well, to that I would say that my faith is because of my logical understanding and my logical process of observing whatever and making a conclusion. I believe that my faith is logical because, number one, you have to believe something, and number two, you have to trust in it in order for it to be faith. And you can only believe something if you think it's the truth. But anyway, that dead horse is double dead. So,
do you propose that you have to believe first in order to then see the evidence?
No.
Okay.
My definition of faith is outside of the evidence itself.
Okay, so you use
the evidence itself influences the faith. The faith does not influence the evidence.
Gotcha. Okay, I gotcha.
Javier Jara says, at Bridge to Divide, Newton's laws of thermodynamics, W.T. Stoneface.
I know there's at least two of
them. Haley Taylor says, if God exists and is all loving and powerful, wouldn't he stop Josh's chicken dinner from burning? I think Josh took the chicken off the grill already. You seem to be a grill master, so I'm going to expect that chicken dinner anytime now. You're not too far from me if you're in North Fort Worth, where stones throw from away from each other. So,
well, actually, I'm in Burleson now, so about 30 minutes after that.
Now we're 2 stone throws away from each other. I know where you're going.
I actually, it was just hilarious because like Johnny's over there on the Fort Worth side, and I actually used to live in Allen. So,
so we're all going to your house for dinner. That's what we're saying.
So, well, was that a serious question? Like, do you want me to answer it? Can you bring it back up?
I have lost it.
It was the chicken. No, I'm sure your chicken dinner didn't burn.
Yeah, I don't think your chicken dinner burned.
It could have. We'll see.
What is it that Mother Abigail says in The Stand? It's tougher when there is no chicken. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
So Raven Darkshire says, Josh, do you believe life can exist outside of Earth?
I believe that simple life can exist out of Earth, and I believe that intelligent life can exist out of Earth. Yes.
All right.
I'd have to agree with given the mathematics of the universe, it's virtually guaranteed that we are not alone in this space. And if you think like cosmic inflation theory, that what we see of the universe is like a fraction of what actually is there. Given the mathematics of the universe, it virtually guarantees that we're not alone, but it also virtually guarantees that we'll never meet them. So,
all right. So Sean Galloway asks, what about the problem of evil?
So the problem of evil, I'm not exactly sure what that would insinuate. I'm assuming immorality would be his question. If God exists, why bad things happen?
Correct.
Why do bad things happen? My bad. And it's a very simple answer. The short answer is because we have free will. The long answer is God loves us so much that he has decided to give us free will. Now, free will means that we have the choice to either love God and follow him, or we can reject God and not follow him. God is not going to force you into his home without your permission or without your consent. And if you do not wish to enter God's home, then he's not going to force you. And if he did, it wouldn't be loving.
Yeah, but then why hell?
Well, what's your definition of hell? Well, because the Bible describes it in multiple different ways, and so I think I haven't done enough research on this, but
well, then
I mentioned. Go ahead.
Why a punishment if okay, for example, if I am punished, or if a person is punished because they came to the logically consistent conclusion that this thing does not exist based upon the evidence, they made no logical fallacies in there are no fallacies in their reasoning, that they weighed everything, did everything they could within the scope of their lives in order to try and understand this, and came to the honest conclusion, the critically honest conclusion that this is the case, and then it turns out to not be the case, then why would that individual be punished?
Because it circles back to truth. You can have perfect logic and reasoning, but if your premises aren't true, then your conclusion won't be true. For example, I can say that all men are mortal. I can say that my brother is a man, therefore my brother is mortal. I could also say that
all men are 8-legged arachnids. My brother is a man, therefore my brother is a 8-legged arachnid. My first example is a true premise and a true conclusion. However, my second example is a false premise and a false conclusion.
I think we're talking about the difference between validity and soundness. I think the issue with the question is not necessarily whether or not the premise is whether or not the argument is sound. We're looking at the fallacy that falls with, if God is true and God is the traditional Western concepts of God, all knowing, all loving, etc. How can someone who can only do good, who knows everything, create something that is evil? Or how can evil exist in that definition of God?
In essence, the logical problem of evil claims that God's omnipotence, omniscience, and supreme goodness would completely rule out the possibility of evil, and that the existence of evil would do the same for the existence of a supreme being. So because God is understood as defined to be all-knowing and all-powerful, like the things we described earlier, and all good, that because God is in charge of everything, and God omnisciently knew, infallibly knew that evil would be there, and evil would be something that is within the realm of its creation. So therefore, God created it. So evil is God's responsibility as well, because God could have logically if God exists, God could then logically have created a world in which no evil exists and all human beings have free will. Christians call it heaven. So, but because that is not what we observe, that is not what exists, then obviously something is wrong here. Either the God itself described itself incorrectly, or it lied, or God can't articulate itself well enough to human beings that we can understand it, which is also a violation of that omnipotent ability, or it exists only in the imagination. So
So God, let me clarify something. I believe that God is perfect. I believe that God is infinite. I also believe that humanity, even the people that wrote the Bible, are not God. People make mistakes. People make bad decisions. People do bad things, obviously. But there's going to be two reasons. Well, at least two things God will never do because he loves you, right? Number one, he will never force you into his home against your will. Number two, he will never appear to the entire world all at once unless he's coming to collect the souls of those that believe. If he came to this earth and his only purpose to come to this earth was to say, hey, I'm here and I exist, well, then his presence would be so powerful and so obvious that it would remove our choice to either love him or reject him. And he's not going to do that because he loves us and he has given us free will.
That doesn't logically follow, because if God showed up, it would no longer be a question about whether or not it exists, but the question would still be, would I follow this thing? Just because it's the most powerful thing in the world, and just because it claims various things about itself, does not logically entail that I will believe those things, and does not logically entail that I will follow this thing automatically. So if this entity showed up and said, I am God, these are my attributes, yada, 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 this is what I do, what do I have to go on other than this being's word that it is true? All I know, that all I can determine from if God showed up, all I would be able to logically determine is that this entity is a supremely powerful entity that is making claims about itself. And it could probably, blink me out of existence or whatever. It doesn't matter. But what matters is what can I determine from this? And what I can determine logically from this, critically from this, using the supposed abilities that this entity gave me, is it logically follows this thing is very, very powerful. It is more powerful than I am, and it is making claims about itself. How can I determine the truth or validity of those claims? Because all I have is its word, right?
Not exactly. The Bible, again, the Bible is my least important evidence for God's existence, in my opinion. But I will follow down this thought process anyway. You say that the Bible. Okay, that's a good question.
It's causing me to think, and I like that. you say that God is giving us descriptions of Himself, but that's not true because the descriptions given by God are written by human testimonies, which can be fallible or infallible. They can be right or they could be wrong. A perfect example of how it could be considered right and wrong is the contradictions in the and I use quotation marks because they're not really contradictions, but the contradictions in the New Testament Gospels. Mark said that there was one angel at the tomb, and I think Luke said that there were two angels at the tomb. But just because one person says that there was one angel does not mean there were not two angels, right? I think we're starting to deviate away from the original question, though.
Well, let's see. I've actually got a couple of questions that might help put it back on track. So Lisa, and I believe this is for JL, says, how would I prove love?
Love is quantifiable. Love is, we can determine it via chemical interaction. We can determine it from both directly the presence of chemicals that are present in the bonding experience of what we call love. So what we define as love is an observation of both behavior and the presence of certain chemicals within the brain that are triggered by particular events. So essentially, there's nothing transcendent about it. It's just it's an emotion, and we were describing what we observe. So love in and of itself is literally just chemical reaction within the brain. It feels extremely powerful. Okay, but ultimately there's nothing that's not understood about it. There's certain chemicals in the brain, oxytocin amongst others, that are present when someone is in love. Love results in particular behaviors because of the presence of those chemicals. So, and you can actively work against those. So you can actually choose not to. But sometimes love can be so powerful that those chemical reactions can be so overbearing or overwhelming that it can influence people's decisions. They can act irrationally. So, because ultimately, love is an emotion, and we understand it. And when there appears to be no love there, we can also determine that the presence of those chemicals do not exist, or they are not being produced by the brain in a particular area, or in a particular circumstance.
All right.
So basically, love is chemical reactions.
Yes. What we call love is what we define it is simply an emotion, and that emotion is predicated by chemical interactions in the brain.
I don't believe that, and I would like to respond if possible.
Sure.
Okay. So I'm going to deviate a little bit into the morality argument, just a little bit. But I will circle back to the love question. If I am walking down the street and I see a man punch a woman in the face, what is it that determines my reaction? Is it my presupposed understanding of morality, or is it a chemical reaction in my brain? I don't believe it's a chemical reaction in my brain because I believe that emotions come from God. I believe that emotions influence the chemical reactions because you have to have an identity in order to make a decision, and your response is your decision, right? So when it comes to love, when I look at my wife, it's not that there's chemical reactions in my brain that are causing me to love her, because if that were true, then that would mean that Hitler didn't really do anything wrong, because it was just chemical reactions in his brain telling him that the Jews were, less than human. I believe that when I look at my wife and I say and I tell myself that I love her, that is what causes the chemical reactions in my brain, because ultimately the source of love is God. There must be a loved one, a lover, and the spirit of love in order for love to exist.
So what happens when we turn the ability for a human being to love off in their brain?
Well, then you remove their choice.
We don't. It wouldn't remove choice. Just the ability to produce the chemicals that are necessary for the bonding experience that we call love, which can be turned off in the brain.
Then that person would never know love.
So is that because you've cut off the receiver in their brain for God to project love into them?
Well, I see what I did just now. Let me circle back with you on that. I just made a circular argument, and I understand that. So let me try to think about it more and give you a better answer.
Okay, that's cool.
All right, really quick, JL, do you have these start questions in the side chat over here?
Yes, I do.
Okay, cool. I have to bounce. I hate to do it. I hate to leave and go. But, whatever. But I've got some other responsibilities I have to take care of. JL, thank you for having me to moderate. I'm pretty sure you guys can handle the questions here. Nothing here in the side seems to be too incendiary. I made sure to leave out any attacks of the person because we don't believe in attacking the people. We believe in attacking the arguments. Josh, thank you for coming out and having a good, solid debate. I appreciate the willingness to learn, the willingness to accept, and the willingness to speak to this guy over here. Bringing me a handful. I leave you in good hands. Thank you, guys. I'm out.
Thanks, Johnny. Appreciate it. All right.
And then there were two.
So, just going through these. Let me go. So make sure that I can see starred several of the comments there. So I want to bring them up real quick. And I appreciate the debate. This was interesting, and I'm glad that there's stuff that we can sink our teeth into there. Javier Jara says, for the guest, why the assertion of more people circumventing the answer is not appeal to popularity fallacy. Javier, I think that may need to be worded a little bit better. I think that because I understand that there's an appeal to popularity there, that because Christianity is so popular, therefore people think it's true. If it wasn't true, so many people wouldn't believe in it. That it is an appeal to popularity. But I don't think I'm pretty sure that's not why you, Josh, believe in it. You don't believe in it because everybody else believes in it. You have your own determinations, correct?
Yeah, pretty much.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Sean Galloway brought up the problem of evil, the logical problem of evil, which just is another point that essentially goes towards that the way the Bible describes God, that entity is a logical contradiction.
Well, again, evil is an absence of good, and for someone to know what evil is, they must know what good is, and the ultimate example of good is God. That's my argument in a nutshell.
Well, and then you run into issues like the Euthyphro dilemma. And the Euthyphro dilemma essentially states, I don't know if you're familiar with the Euthyphro dilemma.
Nope.
Okay, so the Euthyphro dilemma essentially was, let me see if I can break this down as easy as possible. So, 2 seconds. And I want to make sure...
I've only been getting into apologetics for probably like a month now, so there's probably a lot that I still don't know, and I'm okay with that.
Okay, so the Euthyphro dilemma was from Plato's dialogue with Euthyphro, and it's centered around Euthyphro, or Plato's dialogue centering around Socrates' conversation with Euthyphro, and while they're discussing divine command theory. Divine command theory is the view that morality is somehow dependent upon God, and that moral obligation consists in obedience to God's commands. Socrates asked Euthyphro, in response to that, that's what Euthyphro put forward. Socrates responded to that, is something morally right because God commands it, or does God command it because it is morally right? And so the result of that, there are two possible answers to that, but both of them are problematic for God, for God in and of itself, because if it's right because God commands it, then that conclusion would indicate that God has determined what is right or wrong arbitrarily, and no moral principle is self-evident, which would mean that morality is subjective to God's determination. God determines what's moral, but it's still subjective to God. There is no objective standard that God, because if there was an objective standard, God would be appealing to that objective standard to determine what is moral. Okay? But if God commands it because it is right, this conclusion would indicate that what is morally right is independent of God's commands. Moral standards are sovereign from God, and there is morality without God. God is not necessary. We need only appeal to the standard outside of God. Okay? And because I don't believe in Platonic objects or anything, I don't think that there's a wandering morality out there in the universe. In essence, morality is either subjective to humans or it's subjective to God. So God determines what's moral, or we determine what is moral. Either way, it's the same argument. It's just that if there's no God, it's just us determining what is moral. We say, collectively, in agreement, that what Hitler did was wrong. But there are people out there who will think or believe that what Hitler did was right. But we will say, but now it doesn't make us right, because if we say that, well, we are right, that would just be appeal to popularity. Everybody believes it is, so we subjectively determine what is good and what is evil, and typically those conclusions are predicated upon whether or not the consequences of those actions result in a positive effect in our society or our civilization, or a negative effect. This goes back to evolutionary game theory. Cooperative action leading to positive results, selfish action leading to negative results long term, and therefore we determine it's harmful to society in the long term, so therefore we determine that it is evil that he did this, or it's immoral that he did this. But it's completely subjective.
We inherently know what's right and wrong?
No, not human beings don't inherently know what's right and wrong, because human beings, depending upon a host of input, subjectively determine what is right or wrong.
Well, then wouldn't you say that we need an objective standard of morality, whether God sees it as subjective or God sees it as objective?
Whether or not we need one or not is irrelevant.
Of course, this is an opinion.
Yeah. I think that whether or not we need an objective standard is irrelevant. I think that if everyone on the planet were able to agree upon what is, like, if we were able to find a thread, because morality is subjective to the individual, it's subjective to the group, it's subjective to the civilization, to the nation, to the world. The difficulty we have is finding a common thread up through all of that. And now, if we could do that, then yeah, I think we'd be better off for it, because then everybody would have a standard that we could live by, but that wouldn't make that standard any less subjective. It would just mean it's a subjective standard that we all agreed to.
So why not God?
Well, I wouldn't use the term God because of what that entails. I would simply say...
So why not deism?
There you go. You could say deism. But think about that. But if you take the deist position, then all that baggage that comes with Christianity goes away. Which is why I have no qualms with, like, deism, because deism doesn't it doesn't have the loads of irrational stuff that comes along with it, or the dogmatic stuff that comes along with it that inevitably leads to irrational action in the world. So that would actually be a better thing to go on. Which is why I think, given the current Pew studies, the current studies that are going around, that this is why Christianity is especially fundamentalist Christianity is diminishing in the United States in favor of deism and atheism. That people are saying, this whole, like, biblical Christianity thing, this is just, it doesn't comport with reality. It is way too extreme. I'm going to pull back and it's deism. God exists. God is this. The whole, like, Christianity thing. No, that's old bad stuff. It's good. It's like good intentions that have just been molded and warped into really ugly things. So
which, deism, of course, people blame God for the actions of Christians all the time, and that doesn't justify misinterpreting the Bible or interpreting the Bible's. The Crusaders, for example, they specifically twisted the Bible's words to fit their own agenda, which was to go take Jerusalem back from the Muslims, right? You can either argue that the Crusades were a response to Muslim aggression in Jerusalem, but on the flip side of that coin, Christians murdered just as many women, children as the Muslims did.
Right.
So, which is why another reason that I say the Bible is the least important piece of evidence to me, because they were written by people, they're interpreted by people, and it influences people's actions.
I think the important thing about it is that a good distinction to make is that the spread of religion throughout human history, no matter what the religion is, if what you claim is true can only spread by the tip of the sword, then I think that there's a problem. Then I think that there's a problem with what you claim is true, because the spread of the understanding of gravity, or the understanding of the laws of thermodynamics, or the understanding of like general relativity did not require a crusade in order to understand. It just requires, hey, here's this, replicate this experiment, have this understanding of the math, and there you can demonstrate it yourself. Oh, wow, it's true. Okay, I didn't need to kill anybody to demonstrate that, so... All right, so Javier says, for the guest, question 1, if faith is a good epistemology, why not say slavery is good by faith only? That's I think that goes back to what we were discussing about like faith, about the biblically understood faith. That faith is
what
not
exactly
good.
is biblically understood faith? Because it doesn't sound like what I understand it as.
So if you want to go from strictly from the Hebrews, from I think it's Hebrews 1:11, or I may have, is it Hebrews 11? No, Hebrews 1:11. I'm pretty sure. But from that is that faith is belief in things unseen. Faith is essentially that we don't know, we can't determine it, we don't know it, but we will believe in it anyway.
Okay, not my understanding of faith. Okay.
That's also problematic, is in the respect of that because it's so open to interpretation, it's very, very odd that a perfect being would not be able to articulate itself in a way that human beings would understand with no complication, which is just another kind of problem there. Like, how does a perfect being create imperfectly?
Which to my response, God is infinite and our brains are finite. So how could we even begin to fathom?
So divine hiddenness, yeah.
So try teaching a dog to algebra, or try teaching algebra to a dog.
but that's because we can't articulate like dogs. But God, being omnipotent, would be able to articulate like a human being because it created it. So ostensibly, it would be able to perfectly communicate with humans in a way that they could perfectly understand because it's God by its nature. But for some reason, God wasn't able to do that or chose not to do that. So that's where the logical contradiction comes into. It's like, how does a perfect being act imperfectly or create something that is imperfect? Because if a being is perfect, then anything it created would be perfect because it cannot act in an imperfect fashion.
Beautiful.
But that's an appeal. That's an emotional appeal, isn't it?
Of course it is.
Right.
I mean, is it anything that anybody would disagree with?
Yeah, but we can't disagree. We can't just dismiss the logical entailment. That we can't say God is perfect because a perfect being cannot create imperfectly because that would be a violation of its perfect nature. So, obviously, if everything was intentional, then... Yeah.
It requires a choice to create, though. And if you're removing the choice from the source... Well, let me rephrase that. If atheism does not include the choice from before the beginning, which there is no before beginning because you can only have before with time. If atheism wants to remove the choice that has to be made in order to create, why would you try to argue that the creation was imperfect?
Okay, so no, I mean, a perfect agent can still make a choice. It could choose not to, or it could choose to. It would still have agency and the ability to make choices. It's just that by virtue of its nature, it wouldn't be able to do something that doesn't comport with its nature. So, like an imperfect being, humans create imperfect things.
Wait, so if I were perfect, and I had a dart, you're saying that my only target would be the center?
I'm saying that whatever you went for, you would hit every time. You would not be able to miss by virtue of circumstances outside of your control. Because everything you went for, you would hit. So I was like, I'm perfect. I'm going to throw this dartboard. I'm going to throw a dart at a dartboard. I'm going to attempt, I'm just going to throw it. But the laws like wind speed, velocity, angle, none of that matters. Whatever you intend to hit, you will hit. Because you threw it perfectly. Now, if you want to say that hitting a bullseye every time is playing, because playing darts, hitting a bullseye every time is not necessarily perfect. But if you hit a bullseye every single time 100%, and that's the perfect way to play a game, then you would not be able to do anything other than hit a bullseye, because that is the perfect thing in a game of darts. Because everything you do would be perfect. And you couldn't violate that, because if you did, you would be capable of imperfect action, or an action that is imperfect, instead of saying that you are imperfect, because there are things outside of you that can influence you or affect your action. But a perfect action...
Hold on. Sorry to interrupt you, but...
No problem.
Yeah, rain's starting to come. Can you still hear me? Rain's starting to come in.
I gotcha.
Okay. So you're saying that if I hit the bullseye infinitely times in a row, then that is the only thing that I can do. Because, okay, so if I'm a perfect being and I choose to throw the dart without looking, and every single time I throw it without looking, it hits the center. Are you saying that's all I can do?
If you are a perfect being by nature, then yes. If that is the perfect way to play darts, is to hit the bullseye every time, you would not be able to do otherwise.
So what if I were to choose to turn my head and throw the dart?
Well, you still wouldn't be able to violate your imperfect action. So the action itself would still result in a bullseye. Unless, of course, you did not intend to hit a bullseye.
A theoretical bullseye.
No. So no, because then
you're calling it a theoretical bullseye. Because if I throw it and it hits exactly where I want it to go, it's a bullseye whether it's in the bullseye or not.
Well, no, because it depends upon whether or not you can do a perfect action or not, or do an imperfect action. Okay, so if the action is perfect,
can choose to make imperfect choices. Or,
no, it cannot. It's a violation.
Let me rephrase that. A perfect being can choose to create something that is imperfect. There we go. No. That's what I meant to say.
Because it can't do anything outside of its own nature.
But you're assuming that there is no choice involved.
No. It's not that they can choose to create whatever they want, but everything they do will be perfect. Because the flaw in a creation is a result of flaw in the creator. Because the creation is a reflection of the creator.
Well, that's a very materialistic viewpoint of that, but okay, I'll take it.
Well, I mean, anything that a creator creates, that is a reflection of the creator in and of itself. So if a creator creates something and that creation is flawed, then that means that the creator itself is flawed because it cannot overcome that flaw in itself and therefore cannot overcome the flaw in its creation.
God did not create the universe in his image. God created us in his image. It doesn't mean that we look like him or behave like him because he's immaterial. Well, let me rephrase that. God did not create the universe in his image. He created us in his image. It does not mean that we look like him because he's immaterial. It does not mean that we live forever like him because he is infinite. It means that we are personal and we can make choices and that our choices have consequences. We can choose to create a cause.
True, but God cannot create imperfect beings is the problem.
But you're arguing that you are arguing that it's imperfect, and I'm arguing that if you are a perfect being, you can make whatever choice you want because you are perfect. So if you're God,
but the outcome of that can't violate your nature is the problem.
Why not?
Because you're perfect. A perfect agent is incapable of imperfect action.
If you're perfect, you're way up here, right? Mm-hmm. You can still choose to create something right here, or right here, or right here, or right here. That doesn't mean you're not perfect. It means you're making choices.
No, but everything you make would be perfect in that category. It doesn't matter where you decide to create it, or if you make it lower than you whatever. It would be the perfect version of whatever you could make there. Because you wouldn't be able to make it otherwise.
You're only strengthening my argument, because if God created us in his image, then that means that we are supposed to be perfectly like him.
But then again, we're not. Human beings are fundamentally flawed.
But yeah, I was going to say, but then again, we're not, so maybe you're not influenced, or you're reinforcing my point. I think we're arguing in circles here, though.
Maybe, but it's important to recognize that asserting that God has a particular nature, that nature cannot be violated. God cannot violate its own nature. Well, if God is perfect, then anything by extension it would logically entail that everything it made would be perfect. But then,
I think both of our logic is sound, because you're saying if one then the other, and I'm saying if one then the other, but our conclusions are different. So I think we can go ahead and move on to the next question. I think I understand your point. You're saying that if a perfect being creates, that creation is perfect. Is that right?
I apologize. I was reading the next comment. Say it again.
I think I'm picking up what you're saying. Mm-hmm. I think you're saying that if a perfect being creates, then his or her creation is perfect.
Yes. Okay.
I'm saying that I believe that God is perfect, and he has chosen to create a limited world. They're limited, insinuating that it's not perfect.
Okay. All right, Javier Hara also says, question 2, if Jesus is God, God is God, and the Holy Spirit is God, is it fair to say that Jesus drowned babies in the flood?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. Victory Joker says, Satan...
Well, hold on.
Uh-huh.
We're not going to skip over the implications of that. There's definitely a moral implication, but all I'm going to say about that is if God created life, then he has ultimate power over life. We as Christians know that we don't really die, we just move away. I think he wanted to say hi real quick. Did you hear that?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Okay. So, yes,
Victory,
I believe that God can kill whoever he wants, and I don't consider it murder because I believe God is the ultimate giver of life anyway.
God can do with his toys whatever God wants to do with his toys.
If that's the way you want to describe it, then yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah. If it quacks like a duck, or if it crows like a chicken. So, Victory Joker says Satan could appear, claim to be God, and we wouldn't be able to tell the difference.
We couldn't be able to tell the difference. How do you know that?
Well, because how would we, if God doesn't show up and there is only Satan and it's sufficiently powerful enough to do that, how would we be able to, it's the same reason why if God showed up, how would we be able to determine it was God and not a sufficiently powerful enough entity?
Well, he's given the devil more credit than what's actually due. The devil is not anything powerful. The devil is just a fallen angel. The devil is not the leader of hell or whatever. He's just another citizen of hell.
Well, then to rephrase the statement, I think what along the line, the line of thought is that if a sufficiently powerful enough alien showed up with technology that is so advanced that it to us appeared as supernatural, that this individual, this thing could show up, this entity could show up, claim that it was God, and do all the things that God could do, and we would not be able to tell the difference between the two.
That's not the question.
That's essentially what he's saying, is that a sufficiently powerful enough entity would only have to show up and perform whatever tricks we expect to see, claim that it was God, and we would not be able to tell the difference between the two things.
Well, then it wouldn't be Satan.
Well, that's assuming that that you and Victory Joker agree upon your definition of what Satan is. But I think what he's trying to express is that if a sufficiently powerful enough entity showed up with like an alien, with technology that was so advanced that it bordered on the supernatural or appeared supernatural to us, that it could show up, claim that it was God, and we would never be able to tell the difference. Right?
Why would God punish us? Why would God punish us for our inability to make a choice because of some external cause that he most likely created anyway?
Well, that would be, why, like, if you're asking, like, why would God punish
that he created anyway. So it was asked earlier, does life exist outside of Earth? Mm-hmm. I believe it's possible that both intelligent and non-intelligent life is outside of Earth. And if some intelligent beings came over here and convinced us all that they're God and we started to worship them, even Revelations talks about this. Eventually, there's going to be some false gods that people are going to start worshiping, and God will reveal. I think it says God will reveal Himself. This is, from here on out, this is speculation on my part. So I think that if the aliens were to show up and convince everybody on Earth that they are the Abrahamic God, and we don't have a choice, why would we be punished?
Well, it's not saying that they would punish us. It would just simply say that they showed up and claimed to be God. They're not. It's not stipulating that they're taking away our rights, or they're saying we're going to punish you if you don't follow us. It's simply saying we would not be able to tell the difference between God and a sufficiently powerful enough entity that showed up and was able to do whatever. And exactly. So if a species had mastered technology to the point that it could create matter out of thin air, which is just a matter of energy. So, but if it had sufficiently powerful, advanced technology to the point that it could literally pull atoms from the universe and just pull energy and form matter.
Yeah, so if aliens could create something out of nothing, then obviously Christianity would be false. But not only Christianity, but Islam, Hinduism, pantheism, everything would be false.
Right, we wouldn't be able to tell the difference between the two.
We would fall into that. We would probably fall into that petri dish theory, whatever it's called.
Possibly. All right.
I just noticed that wasn't actually a question. There was no question mark at the end of the sentence. So was it a question or was it a statement?
I may have been a statement, but I was trying to derive a question from it.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah. Javier Har also says, for the guest in jail, do the beliefs of any group of people logically entail that the object or being is extant in reality? And I would say no. They do not logically entail that.
Beliefs by themselves, no.
Okay.
Beliefs because of the evidence, yes.
Gotcha. Okay. But just because a group holds a belief does not mean that belief is extant in reality. For example,
we all know that Hitler was wrong, so no.
Well, I would say that the vast majority of us agree that Hitler was wrong, but there are some people out there that think Hitler was right.
Yeah.
Or they believe that he was right, so yeah. Let me see. Victor Joker also says, the plot hole, Josh, why is the Bible correct over other religious books like the Quran?
I really only have one example as to why the Bible is correct and the Quran is not. The Bible claims by eyewitness details plus the writings of Josephus plus the discovery of Caiaphas's ossuary that a man named Jesus Christ lived, was killed, and was crucified and was resurrected 3 days later. I believe that's true because of the evidence that I glossed over just before I started answering it. And I believe that the Quran is false because anything that opposes the truth is technically false. The Quran states that Jesus did not die on the cross, but instead he ascended into heaven. So I guess you could even look into the Quran as an external source outside of the Bible for the proof that Jesus actually existed. But I don't really think that Jesus's existence is really up for question, unless JL, you disagree with me.
I don't think that there's enough. I don't think there's sufficient evidence in order to determine if Jesus, as was biblically depicted, actually existed. I think that from the evidence and from notions like, I don't know if you've ever read the book, The Hero of a Thousand Faces.
I've never even read the Bible front to back, so I'm too lazy to read.
There's a book out there called The Hero of a Thousand Faces, which basically describes the hero cycle, and that it essentially, and I have to pull up the author's name, but it was I want to make sure I get him right. So 1 second. Joseph Campbell wrote The Hero of a Thousand Faces, and Joseph Campbell essentially looked at the history of human literature and looked at all of the heroes that existed, everything from Beowulf to Gilgamesh to Jesus to Mahatma to all of them, and realized that there is a commonality between all of their stories in that they follow what is called the hero cycle. And the reason for this commonality is because the hero cycle was identified very early on as the best way to convey in a story the journey of a hero that human beings can identify with. And that all of the great mythological figures, including Hercules and Perseus, all of these great heroes, all their stories all follow the hero cycle. And that was it was a weird commonality. But that's just because human beings are very similar in how we reason, logic, and rationalize things about the world. And that's a literary trope that is still used to this day, the hero cycle. And so he was wondering, what does this say about the figure? So given what we know from the Bible, and given what we know about the kind of the extra biblical narratives concerning Jesus, there's not enough evidence to support that the events took place as depicted in the Bible. And there's too much conflicting information in the Bible regarding the events at the time and what occurred immediately after. Like how many people were at the tomb? Was the body still in the tomb? How long did it take for Jesus to show back up? Who did he appear to? How many angels were there? There's no extra biblical evidence that the resurrection took place, and there's no extra biblical evidence that Jesus was ever taken off the cross. In fact, the Romans, by historical evidence, the Romans did not pull anyone from their crosses. They crucified everybody that was essentially an enemy of the state. That was the method of punishment.
Sedition, right?
Yeah, so they pretty much just crucifixion was just the way people were executed, and so but the Romans typically did not pull people down. They left them on those crosses to rot away as a message to anyone else who would think about committing that crime. So allowing Christ to be taken down is is not really backed by historical evidence, by all of the evidence we have from Roman history.
But there is evidence that the Romans were allowing the burial of some crucifixion.
It's possible.
I don't want to say
can't rule it
victims,
out.
but
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, we can't rule it out entirely. But like I said, the evidence is insufficient. Was there an itinerant rabbi who wandered around Iron Age Palestine and pissed off the people in power? Sure. I will agree that it's totally possible that there was an itinerant rabbi named Yeshua who wandered around preaching kind of what the Pharisees perceived to be heretical teachings that were based on stuff that was extra to the Jewish faith. And I get that. And then they crucified him for it. Essentially, that would just make Christ the David Koresh of Iron Age Palestine. So,
all of that, refutation. I guess I could call it your refutation of the presented evidence. All of that circles back to my original statement that truth is my number one priority. So, is the New Testament true? I believe it is. Now, you mentioned contradictions or. What was the word you used for the differences in the Gospels?
Well, there's contradictions in the Gospels, as when, okay, so for example, like when specifically Jesus was born, when the family left to go into Egypt, like why they were leaving to go into Egypt. There's a 10-year discrepancy there, and then of course the things that Jesus said to various people, the actions that he performed. There's varying stories between the four Gospels. And so we have one gospel writer that completely plagiarized off another gospel writer. Then we have one gospel that was written by multiple authors, and then so there's a lot of information going in there.
You'll have to send me evidence for that plagiarizing another gospel writer, because I've never heard that before.
Well, pulling the information from that one and then basically just copying it down, and so
I know plagiarism.
But we also know that we also know. We also know that the authors that wrote these things down were not present at the event. So they wrote them like some 50, 60 years after the fact. So this was oral stories that were passed down.
Let me address that real quick. So 50 or 60 years after the events actually happened, that is true. That does not refute the explosive growth within the Christian what's it called? The Christian religion. Now, if you're going to be logically consistent about historicity, you'd have to doubt the writings of Alexander the Great. He died in 323 BC, and the first validated manuscripts didn't appear until the 1st century AD. So we've got a 40-ish year difference between the events of Jesus and when the New Testament manuscripts were validated, and we've got a 300-ish year gap between when Alexander the Great conquered the world versus when he was written about by I think his name is Quintus something. I can't remember off the top of my head. And the point that I'm trying to make is, just because events were written about later does not mean that the events that were written about did not happen.
Agreed. Just because if I catch a fish and then someone 50 years down the road writes that I caught a fish, that doesn't mean that I didn't catch the fish. Okay, so just given that. But what typically happens to oral traditions over decades?
The telephone game. Sure.
Exactly. Things get changed. Things get kind of like blown. I mean, we're talking about, if you want to talk about individuals like Tacitus. Like Tacitus wrote about Christ, but he also wrote that Hercules was a real person. So,
but you also have to consider the environment and the educational standards of when it was most important that a man's word be true.
I agree with it. I agree. But this is why I would say there's insufficient evidence to conclude that we can't say for certain, absolutely, this is the case. What we can say is that this guy existed, most likely, but there's no, that we can say that the evidence is strong that the dude existed, the dude spoke against the Pharisees, and the guy was executed for being a heretic. That's a common thing. That's actually common enough in human history that we can say that that's most likely what happened. But the evidence does not conclude that he was divine in nature. His existence alone as a human being does not logically entail that he was divine. Does not logically entail that he performed supernatural feats that any magician today could have pulled off using basic materials that were available then. And it doesn't entail that he resurrected. I mean, what's the difference between we showed up at the tomb and the body was gone? Oh, he must have risen. No, people could have just stolen the body. I mean, how would we tell the difference?
Okay, so number one, they wouldn't have stolen the body because the body was alive, right? Number two, if the historicity is in question as to his supernatural powers, why did the New Testament writers document that the women first saw him alive?
But it was different as to who saw him alive. The reporting was different.
But they were all women.
So?
So, a woman's testimony was less than that of a man during that time.
But not of the people.
So why would
but not considered by the people who were writing it. Because the people that were writing it did not hold the same position hold the same positions on women as the vast majority of civilization that surrounded them. The Romans had a specifically different concept of women's roles than the Christians did.
Well, then why would they document that the women saw Jesus alive?
Because specifically Jesus held them in high regard. So if they did appear there, or if it was the women who came and told them, that would be one thing. But we have no record of any conversations that took place after the crucifixion and after Jesus was put into the tomb. So who spoke to them? Who did they speak to? What conversations were held in the time that his body was in the tomb? And then who opened the tomb? How many angels were in the tomb? Were the angels outside of the tomb? Who specifically saw it? Who reported it after the fact? See, there's not, right, like I said, it's insufficient to conclude because there's too much variation there. And because we can't pull the writers forward and be like, hey, what did you mean by this?
It should be sufficient to conclude because the differences in the New Testament being testimonies of what people eyewitnessed, the fact that there are differences should prove that they didn't collude with each other to tell the same lie. You would never say that a woman testified that she saw Jesus because everybody would laugh at her. So the only reason that the New Testament writers said women saw Jesus alive has to be because they were telling the truth. Because if they were trying to sell a lie, they would say, if they were trying to sell a lie, they wouldn't say that the women saw Jesus alive. They wouldn't have said that everybody ran in fear when Jesus was crucified. They would have said when Jesus was sentenced to death, the women ran into fear. We prayed with Jesus the entire time he was crucified. We saw him rise, and then we went home and we comforted the women. That's what would happen that's generally what would happen if somebody were embellishing or trying to sell a lie.
Well, maybe, but like I said, we can't make that determination either way because we don't have the authors here to talk to them. All we have is what was written down. So the only evidence we can go off of is the evidence that we have available to us. Anything beyond that would be speculation as to what was intended or what was meant to be said. But we can only speculate as to motivation.
Well, then take it at face value.
Why?
Because they were telling the truth.
But there's no justification to take it at face value. The only justification is that this was written down. The only justification is that this was written down, and we cannot make a determination because there's of whether or not it's true or not, because there's not enough evidence to support that. All we have is the anecdote, and and just because a bunch of people wrote down a similar thing doesn't mean the event took place, because we can't rule out the possibility that there was a concerted effort to get the story across.
Man, I think I'm getting too much sun. No, I laughed because I said that the New Testament is my least important evidence for God.
Oh yeah,
talking about it.
I wouldn't rely on the Bible for much of anything. I mean, didn't even get the Hittites right. So yeah.
So on that, there is evidence that the New Testament writers were at least telling the truth. And if they were telling the truth, then the New Testament is true. So, number one, people die for a lie that they believe is false, or people die for a lie that they believe is true, right? We can take Muslim terrorism, for example. People will never die for a lie that they know is a lie. And so
that's not true. That's not true.
That might be some speculation on my part.
Yeah, there were many people that died for Jim Jones that did not hold to his beliefs.
Let me give me about 2 or 3 minutes. I got to go get a charger for my phone.
Let's see here real quick. Yes, John Rapp. John Rapp, good to see you, bud. And Bob Nadale's Gyroscope, to see you there. And Alpha K91, good to have you here. And other members of the Godless Army. John Rapp says the plural of anecdote is not evidence. Agreed. So, or as I think Dillahunty says, the plural of anecdote is not data. So, let me see here. Make sure...
All right. What did I miss?
Oh, not much. Just going on like John Rapp in the chat was saying the plural of anecdote is not evidence, and that's true. Or as Matt Dillahunty likes to say, the plural of anecdote is not data. So just because there are many anecdotes about a thing, we have to take them with a grain of salt because there's no way we can verify with any the veracity of the claims. Just as I'm
gonna go grab a drink real quick.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
But that's pretty much it. That's just what he was commenting there. I think I got through all of the questions there. Let me make sure there's not any others. Given this, let me scroll down. Let's see. There's a lot about AI. GG, this is interesting fun. Oh, thank you, Goosebump 801. I do appreciate that. If you watch us on the back, I thank you for hanging out. Argument from intelligence design. See, and wait. Oh, what fly? Let's see. There's nothing. It's wrong clothes. Dan Penninger says there is also no thing as bad weather, just the wrong clothes. Let me see here. Neo Badger says, message from the Dyslexic Society. Hail Santa. This guy, let me see. Sean Galloway says, St. Michael was defeated by Satan according to the Bible. Satan would be the most powerful being on earth. If it showed up, it would be the most powerful being on earth, second only to God. If you go by the Bible. But I know that, there's a lot of interpretation there. Let me see. Going through.
There was something funny that I saw. Somebody had commented that I look like some dude from Duck Dynasty.
All right, let me see. Colorado Biker says all... Oh, do I still have you? Or did I lose you? Oh, there he is. Colorado Biker says all atheists would probably need to do is read the Bible from cover to cover. So I would recommend starting there.
That's my thumb.
Here. Let's see, Victory Joker. No, I think. Hey, ducks.
This is for the person that said I look like I'm on Duck Dynasty. I'm on my own Duck Dynasty.
All right, I think that's pretty. Everything else was pretty much commentary. Facty says, jail. Ask him why he doesn't believe it's. No. He. Oh, okay. So Facty, Joshua does acknowledge science, and let's see. Alice Caffrey says, I gave up on Christianity after visiting the U.S. many times. It caused me to question everything. I think I'm losing you, Josh.
was
I don't know if you can hear me, but you're roboting. You're roboting quite a bit. I think he may be losing signal. Yeah, I think he dropped out. There he is. Okay,
no, I'm here. I was waiting for the Wi-Fi, but I was trying to quote Einstein, but I can't remember his exact words, so I'll just skip over it.
So I think that's all the questions that got pertaining to the debate in and of itself. And we've been going for nearly 3 hours now, so I think
has it been 3 hours? Oh my god!
Yeah, 2 hours 52 minutes. Well, it's been 2 hours for us. I was live for an hour before the debate to kind of set the table and talk with everybody and catch up with everybody. So that's pretty much it. So I appreciate you coming on, bud. This was a great conversation, and I think a lot of stuff to sink our teeth into. So appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, like I mentioned, there's definitely some things that you pointed out. They're pretty good points. I have to look into them and probably just message you on Facebook. But hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Thanks for giving me the opportunity to embarrass myself.
No, you're good to go. I will do this. You have access to the private chat. So what I will do is this. I'm going to copy this link. And I'm going to private chat. As a matter of fact, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to Facebook Messenger it to you. And
okay,
this is the article that gives the rundown on how that determination is made about uncertainty of relations and the like, and that is right here. Okay, I sent that to you via Messenger. So more reading material.
Oh man. It's difficult for me to trust .org websites, but I'll give it a look.
Well, I mean, it's a DOI, so it's just the site that it came from. But it's from the DOI is the scholarly article. So,
okay.
But yeah, all right. Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate you coming on. This has been a blast.
Yeah, man. Maybe I'll talk to you later. I don't know.
All right, definitely, Chief. You have a safe one. All right, enjoy the chicken.
You too. Thanks. Bye.
All right, boss. All right, that was fun. Yes, Nancy Helton. I'm proud of Josh for stepping into the lion's den. That was fun. So, and he didn't embarrass himself. He did a good job. I think ultimately there were some appeals to emotion there. There's some arguments from incredulity and some things that were just kind of trying to blend two things together to justify his belief. But if he keeps reading and he keeps researching and he keeps studying, I think he'll eventually he'll get to where or he'll get to the rational conclusion on that. All right, so thank you for everybody for hanging out for that debate. I'm glad that it happened. I see that Cloudy Coyote never showed up, so I'm not terribly worried about that. Maybe he'll show up another time. I do still hope eventually to have MC Toon on here to have a discussion. That he doesn't believe in science. I think that he doesn't like that science can appear to be very antagonistic towards his beliefs. I didn't want to assume that he's just like a science denier, that he's just like a Luddite. So I'll just close this out. I'll finish this out with the closing. As time has progressed from the first concept of the Abrahamic God to now, our understanding of reality has progressed far beyond what the original authors of ancient texts could have possibly conceived. The improvements in our understanding of logic and reality over time have acted like negative selection pressures on the biblical Abrahamic God, the very attributes and nature of that God evolving to survive within the scope of our new understanding. And as attributes are lost, as its very nature becomes inconsistent, slowly but surely the God is pushed closer and closer to the edge of the board, until this entity that was once described as walking and talking alongside human beings, directly involved with them in their decision-making, has now mutated into this metaphysical conception of a disembodied mind that persists impossibly outside of space-time, demanding the worst mistakes in human reasoning be made to justify a belief in it, existing solely because it is merely defined as existing. So just as the gods of ancient cultures were relegated to mythology as the human understanding of reality improved, so has the time come that the biblical Abrahamic God is relegated to mythology, thus leaving humans with the only logically consistent conclusions of standard deism, dystheism, or atheism. So that was essentially my point that I think I got across quite well. So I know that he's going to keep working at it, and he's got a good head on his shoulders, and he's doing what he can to approach the topic with intellectual honesty. So, all right. So I hope that y'all enjoyed it. That was fun. We've gone for almost 3 hours now, so 2 hours 57 minutes. I think that's pretty much it. I think I covered everybody. Colorado Biker says, this was a lot better than the Atheist Experience, much more thought-provoking. Appreciate that, Colorado. I really, really do. This was a lot of fun. Let me see here. Roboting, first world problems. Bob Nodell. All right, so I think that is where I will call it. So a huge, giant thank you to everyone, to all of the super chats that came in. I do appreciate those. All those super chats are going to assist with the travel out to Ashland. Even though the fight with Chile is not taking place, I'm still going out there, and I'm also going to go by the Ark Encounter, and I will report from there and see what I can see. Not to mention be hanging out with Irish Demon and checking out various things, so I think it'll be a lot of fun. So any super chats, anything that comes in is going to help to support that, support the trip. And then, of course, thank you, a huge giant thank you to all of my channel members. Thank you for supporting the channel. If you want to become a channel member or become a member of the Godless Army, the link is in the description. It's 99 cents a month. That's pretty much all I value my content as. And all that goes to help me continue to do this. So, and of course, you get all of the very, very cool emojis that I've made for you, and of course, the channel badge. So I hope you all appreciate. I hope you like that. As far as upcoming content, I am working on 2 videos right now that I'm going to release here pretty soon that I think that y'all will enjoy. And those are coming up. And as always, Week in Horror, the horror podcast that I do with my filmmaker friends, is available every Wednesday where we do the live show over at the Week in Horror. The links for that are also in the description. So thank you all very, very much for all of your continued support. I really do appreciate it. Your continued viewership, your super chats, your super stickers, your channel memberships help to make all of this possible. So thank you. Of course, hit me up anytime, hit me up anytime at my email address, jlwarren2020@gmail.com. It's in the about of my channel. And be sure to hit that like button on the way out. Thank you very much. I think we had a good productive evening, or a good productive afternoon. So thank you all again. Okay? And as always, be safe, be excellent to each other. And together, we can bridge the divide.